This is the Imperial podcast. I am Josh Folan, and you are listening to another Order of Erdrick interview where I have the great pleasure of speaking to some of the more esteemed members of the retro gaming community in history books. Today, I am with Nick. It is Pasto, right?
Yep.
So I don't fuck it up the whole time. Okay, great. I'm with Nick Pasto and Roger Barr, co-creators of Abobo's Big Adventure, amongst many other things, which is a 2012 released ode to the Nintendo Entertainment System that has rocked basically every retrohead that's played it to their core, myself included. Say hi, guys.
Hello.
Okay, so my first question is a little less Abobo focused and more kind of just I want to get you guys maybe warmed up with thinking back, hopefully to a very core memory of your retro or your gaming development timeline. I'd love to hear. I guess Roger, start with you. I'd love to hear what the very first thing that you can remember feeling pride about having created in the game development realm. And ideally, this would be something that is something you would even share with others. I mean, like, I'd love to hear the thing that you can recall, like sitting in a room alone, and it needn't even be like a fully functioning program, just a single animation or a single little piece of code that you worked out or whatever it might be that on screen worked and you just sat in a room happy thinking to yourself, holy shit, that worked.
I mean, for me, that's an easy answer. It was Kill the Old Man from Zelda.
Okay.
I think it was the very first thing I ever uploaded to Newgrounds, and Newgrounds is where guys like myself and Nick, we kind of cut our teeth. It was just all about experimenting and putting up weird things that we thought would make other people laugh or entertain them. And yeah, that was my first interactive Flash movie that I had ever done completely by hand.
Okay.
And that was exciting. And then seeing everyone reacting to it on Newgrounds, that kind of like started my whole, the whole path that I was on from that point. Like, all right, I'm just going to keep making this stuff. And then I got to work with Nick and other people from there.
How old were you when you did that?
Oh God, definitely early 20s. In fact, here, let me look it up real quick. I can give you a date. But the idea behind it was basically this old man from Zelda. He always frustrated me, because sometimes he wouldn't give you anything in the game when you wanted him to. So I made this little interactive movie where you can just do stupid little things to him. Like you can drop the raft from Zelda on him. You can blow him up with a bomb. You can do all kinds of stuff.
Okay.
But this was made in 2001. So
Okay.
that's January of 2001. That was my very first upload to Newgrounds. So.
Doesn't the old man in that have like a horny wife?
Yes, that was my favorite one because there is an old woman in Zelda, and in my silly little Flash thing, she chases him off screen, and hearts start coming up from out of the frame and everything. So
that's amazing. When I watched that one interview you sent Nick, and you mentioned that in there how that was a formative piece of Abobo's Big Adventure, and that's cool. I mean, I don't know. I'm surprised to hear that there wasn't something further back than that was even more crude and more. It's amazing to me, I guess, that you shared the first thing you ever created. Maybe that's what I'm getting at here.
Oh no, I mean, I'd been writing articles on my site and stuff like that. But as far as like actually making something that's more interactive and all that, that was definitely the first thing that I can remember. I'm sure I did other little silly things in Flash, but this is the first thing that I actually remember and put out there.
Okay. Can you recall? And sorry, this is something I do on the show a lot. We talk when we're talking, especially with PC stuff, which is so, obviously with consoles, there's only the one whatever with it. So there's not a lot of variance to it. But when you're talking about old PCs, especially like 90s, early 2000s, there's all these different, the spectrum was wide with what people were using as far as processor speeds and what the computer was and all that. Can you recall what the hardware and software that you might have created that on?
I mean, the software was Flash and Photoshop. That was it. Very early versions of them. This is when Flash was still owned by Macromedia. So just to give you an idea, that's before Adobe took it over.
I remember the splash screen on the program. Actually, I dealt with it back then as well.
I'd gone to I'd taken some courses on it. I went to this place in New York, in Brooklyn called Noble Desktop Publishers, and I got certified in Flash at the time, which was, believe me, my knowledge of Flash is very rudimentary. You know, I was able to, you know, do basic animation stuff and all, but again, with Newgrounds' wide-reaching audience, you know, that thing still had over 500,000 views back then, and it's at 630 plus thousand views still right now, which is for something that was such a silly, ridiculous little thing. It's
Things that come from the heart go far, man. Things that come from the heart go far.
Yeah, so
I mean, I love it. It's like a kernel of Abobo to I'll get to it later, but I called them revenge. I think maybe you guys even might have referred to them as revenge moments that in Abobo are some of the most, I don't know, in tune with having been a Nintendo head of that time. Those are the moments that I connected to with maybe the most, because you have this built up years of aggravation against these, inanimate pieces of code.
No, 100%. The very next month, my very next thing, after being inspired by seeing people excited about the old man from Zelda, I did Kill the Duck Hunt dog, and that's one that everyone can relate to.
Sure.
That dog would laugh at you whenever you missed it and stuff. So that was, it's just fun stuff.
Absolutely. Do you remember what your PC was when you were jamming on that?
I think it was a compact Presario at the time. I can't say for sure, but I definitely had a Presario around that time. But yeah, that might have been before then. It's really hard to forget.
Yeah, so you both laughed when you said that, though. It's weird how it's funny to actually hear the PC names and the hardware be said out loud.
Yeah, no, I mean, I used to work at Circuit City, and I sold computers back then, so I ran the gamut of those systems.
I had a short stint at Best Buy. I never got off the button monkey stuff up front, but I had my stint at the superstores as well. Nick, what about you? What's the first thing you can recall ever creating in this realm?
It's interesting because my first memory is all the way back in high school. It was like I graduated in 1998, so this is probably 96 or 97, and there was just a group of people that would stay after school and go to the computer lab and dork around on computers, play games and stuff. And my best friend at the time, Matt Cochran, shout out to him, still my best friend,
who also worked on the Abobo arcade cabinet later on with Nick.
Yep. He's a mechanical engineer now, but we were both just high school dorks at the time, and he was taking a computer class at our high school, which is crazy that we even had a computer class, but that was specific for like programming computers. And they had an assignment, like a project that they were working on, which was to create a point and click adventure in HyperCard. This was a program on early Macintosh. And it was a lot like Flash, where it was basically the way they sold it is it's a series of like index cards that are all stacked up together, and you could draw with your mouse images on each of those cards, and then you could have them play like an animation. And then there was also some basic scripting where you could say, when you get to this card, go to and play this other card, or go to and stop this other card. And there's very rudimentary like interactive elements, so you could actually click stuff to trigger going to different cards and playing animations and stuff. And so the first thing
did you make Myst before the Myst guys, or no?
I think it was around the same time as Myst, and I thought I was making Myst.
He made Hugo's House of Horrors, right? Hugo's House of Horrors.
And the first animation I made was of a Latinx character who ate a hot pepper and then breathed flames, and then was looking around for something to put out the fire in his mouth. And he goes running like Looney Tune style, spinning legs, and runs over, and there's a big bottle that he grabs, and he drinks it, and then he looks at the label and it says hot sauce on it, and then it shows him like kind of zooms out, and his head does like a transform effect, so it looks like it's kind of spinning around, and then his head blows up. And
Okay.
that was the first animation I made. And I was like hooked. And so like every day after school, I was back in there. I was taking the notes from my friend's computer class, and learning how to make interactive stuff. And so their assignment was just basically follow these directions and make this escape the room kind of game where you had to click on a picture that was on the wall and get a key and unlock a door, and then you win the game. But I started with that with just the assignment, and then I made like 15 other rooms. And there's like a story of you're in an alien spaceship that you're trying to escape from, and you go into like an alien autopsy room, and you have to like hack it into the interface surgical bot to like blow a hole in the wall. And then you go and there's like a space shuttle bay that you end up in, and you have to like punch numbers in or punch certain buttons in a certain sequence to get the ship to boot up. And then I did this long ending cutscene at the end of it that was like, if you ever played like Space Quest.
I was just gonna say you're describing Space Quest.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely, inspired by Space Quest. It even like the cutscenes, and I think there's one cutscene in Space Quest that's actually inspired by Star Wars, where the Millennium Falcon like it is dodging asteroids and it gets really close to the screen and turns sideways and then goes back away from the screen and dodges another asteroid. And so I had a whole final cutscene that had all that kind of stuff in it. And I wish that I still had a copy of that somewhere.
I was gonna ask. Yeah, I was gonna ask if that's
that was like, it's probably way better in my mind than it was. But, man, I was actually talking to Matt, my friend, the other day. He's like, we should do like a documentary to try to like go back to your old high school, see if we can find the old computers, see if we can like recover that, interview all the.
They're probably in a basement somewhere. There's probably at least some of them is in a basement somewhere. They
you just reminded me.
Schools throwing something out seems very unlikely to me.
Yeah. Just to put it in perspective, Matt is the person who taught me the shortcuts to copy and paste on a keyboard. Like that's how little I knew about computers at the time.
And a long way, my friend.
Yeah.
It's funny though, you reminded me with the school stuff. Like I guess technically my first game I ever made was on a TI-81 calculator, a graphing calculator, because our trigonometry class required us to learn these things. But the entire time I was just screwing around in class making text-based adventure games on it, and I would pass it around to my classmates. So
what was the one called Trade Wars? What was the
Oh, Trade Wars was that was on a computer BBS.
Right.
I ran a dial-up BBS with WIB software many years.
There was one on the calculators I remember we were using, because I graduated in 99 too, so I'm right in the same bracket. And yeah, our TI had an 83 plus in college. And in high school, they might have been like 80. I think they were 85s or something, 86s. But yeah, there was like, I think it was like selling drugs, maybe actually. Which maybe was also what Trade Wars was. I can't recall, but there was definitely a computer program that was text based that was all about selling illicit substances and stuff. And yeah, I mean, we weren't allowed to have them, but everyone was thrilled to have them on the and passing them around on each other's calculators and stuff. Yeah, that was a whole thing for sure. What was the hardware that you made that on, Nick?
It was Computer Lab, Macintosh. From that era. I don't know if it was Apple II or what it was, but
okay.
I don't remember exactly. It was definitely a Mac though, and yeah, whatever the schools could afford in 1990.
Right. Yeah, I mean, in my high school, we definitely. In middle school, we got some updated. They had like CD-ROM drives and stuff, but the high school, for some reason, didn't get that funding or that whatever. And all through high school, I was still rocking on those Apple IIs, and there was a PC comparable like I think they might have been Compacts too. Actually, I mean these are all 5 1/4 drive deals. The Apple IIs are monochrome, of course. Yeah.
I remember the zip drives coming out, and that like changed the universe for me. Yeah, 100 megs on a disc. Holy shit!
Yeah, I remember the novelty of them. I never actually had one myself.
Oh, I definitely have lots of old zip discs like buried and stored somewhere. So I'm dying someday to see what's on those.
I've got some left over from college too. So something about me, I always considered myself an artist in high school. Like I, was did a lot of artwork and paintings and sculptures and stuff like that. And I actually went to college for that as well. And it actually took me a long time to realize that I loved coding. But looking back at that experience that I had in high school with the making that video game, there was a lot of like logic and scripting involved in that. And I was like obsessed with it, like and so I wonder why it took me so long to realize to explore that more, because I went through college and didn't do a lot of kind of engineering oriented stuff.
Nick is a good artist for the record.
Yeah, it took me a long time to embrace that side of my personality. And
well,
it's funny
it wasn't cool like it is now, not as
that's
cool.
probably true.
Yeah.
The girls weren't into the nerds as much as they are today.
Right.
I did fine in math and stuff in school, but it never really started making sense to me until I started getting into video games and could see a practical application. And then all of a sudden it was like, wow, this stuff is actually useful, has a practical application. Trigonometry was like, oh, okay, that's what this is for. Make arrows fly in an arc and make a tank turret turn. It's like, oh, finally this
y equals mx plus b.
I used that formula in a video game that I made.
I'm glad someone did, because I never used that, even though they said, "Oh, you'll need this in life, Raj."
Yeah. What I always say about like calculus and stuff, I went to school for business, and there was a bunch of that at the tail or beginning of the curriculum, and I would just like, what am I ever going to need to know the area underneath that curve for? I'll never need to know that information my entire life. I never really did grasp it either. Conversely to you guys finding a use for it eventually. I still don't today. Okay, cool. Well, that's just a warm up, like I said. So I want to rip into the Abobo stuff. And again, hopefully these questions are not things you've already answered a million times.
It's okay if they are.
Yeah. Well, we'll strive for greatness anyways. So I think the thing that, and again, it's the thing that blew me away about the game was like the emotional connectivity of it. Like, until I delved more into kind of the history of it, I would have never even guessed that it wasn't on some kind of NES architecture. In the podcast recording even, I mean, Nick, you listened to it, I think, like, I hadn't done that dive yet really on the history. And yeah, to me, it's more impressive that it isn't, because of how closely it captured the feel, the timing, the input of those OG hardware experiences on the NES. And, I'm doing this fucking dumbass podcast. So like, I clearly am just like overly like, I've just played these games so damn much. So there's so many, like Mike Tyson's Punch Out, for example, is it's common knowledge how it's an amazing game. Yes, I think it's the best game in the system. Others will argue some other things. Even my co-host is a big SMB3 fan. I think he's out of his mind. I think Mike Tyson's Punch Out is the pinnacle of like logic and action colliding on a Nintendo Entertainment System, as far as like, I don't know, being both things. But
a lot of character as well in my
ton of character. Yeah, those characters are so memorable and have so much going on with them. But yeah, like the puzzle nature, I don't know. I don't think there's a better real-time puzzle game on the system. And everyone, from a distance would look at that and think it's just a boxing game. But that's a different topic probably. But yeah, you guys captured that timing and input so well, and you had to be aware of that. And obviously the importance of it, I think, I guess I do want to ask a question. I'm kind of making a statement here. Like, was it something that you consciously worked on? I mean, clearly timing and replicating the games was a thing, but I mean, did you spend time like going back and revising with that sole thing in mind? Like, yes, it looks like it. Yes, someone maybe who is just playing this for the first time will think this is fine, but it's not quite exactly how I remember it. Was that like a development focal point for you guys that you guys discussed internally and maybe even argued about?
Yeah, it actually was a big deal to me because I previously had started up this game with a different programmer, and we were having fun with it and all on the first level, but it just was not feeling like an NES game. He was putting in just more of his own modern things to it. Like all the characters were having like a little health bars above them as they moved along. Just things that just did not feel NES, and it wasn't like pixel perfect like I wanted it. That was another very crucial thing. Like everything needed to be pixel perfect in this game. Nothing that looked out of place, you know. And thankfully, you know, when I put out the call to start this project over again, and Nick responded and stuff, he was someone who cared about that attention to detail like I do, and it's all credit to him, for making it happen, and putting up with the our demands for it being that accurate. But I know he wouldn't have it any other way as well. So these
Yeah,
are just as important to him as they are to me.
Mhm. I first of all, I want to say just a meta moment here. Listening to your podcast about Abobo's Big Adventure, one of my favorite memories from working on this game.
What? That's an amazing thing to say. Thank you.
Because I mean, I could just feel that you got it. Like you had appreciation for every detail and ounce of effort that we put into that game.
I play these games too. It's honestly it's a credit to Nintendo because I've played these fucking games too much to not have that appreciation. But I'm sure that's why it rang true for so many other people too. You know, I mean, it's just a perfect encapsulation of it.
We somebody who is close, but I think yours was even more connected to the real effort, recognition of what all went into the game. Somebody who came close was the Angry Video Game Nerd. I don't know if you saw, they did a review.
Oh, I didn't know. Not on this game. No, I will have to look. I'm not. I watched those when I first started digging around for old game content. It's a little tired now, but I would love to see his take on this for
It
sure.
was interesting. It wasn't like an official, like in his character. It was like one of their, we're just casually playing
Oh,
games.
him and Mike just playing.
Yeah,
okay, cool.
Right.
James and
Good.
Mike.
I would prefer that because then it's actually not overplayed.
I was actually surprised by that playthrough. As much fun as it was, I think Mike got more of the references than James did. But my favorite playthrough that I watched was from Awesome Video Games, or Video Games Awesome.
Oh yeah,
crew.
yeah. There's a really
that was an absolute joy to watch that. I mean, there was and we can get into it more later, but just the release of it was so. It was such a moment for us to see everyone just. It was like the internet coming together for something joyous rather than just everyone fighting or everything. Just everyone's celebrating this thing we've been working on, and it's a memory I wouldn't trade for anything. So
that's awesome, man.
But yeah, it's like Nick is saying, like it's the attention to detail on it was really important to us because we're setting out to pay homage to a system that meant so much to us, an era that meant so much to us. All these games that mattered a lot, and if you're half-assing it, it's just not gonna connect with people the way we want to. And with the amount of effort we wanted to put in and time we put into this, I don't think we could take any shortcuts, and that made it really hard on us, especially for Nick at times, because he definitely went through burnout periods.
No, the burnout was real. I think you probably said it at some point in your podcast. Just nobody could have made this game who didn't live through this era of time. It's just, nobody could have retconned this information into a modern title.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
it only have been done by us.
Someone who loved it enough. Yeah. No question. I mean, like I said, I said when that first tweet I sent you was not a hyperbolic. Like I am genuinely ashamed that it took me 12 fucking years to play this. It's insane to me, given how just perfect of a creative work it is for my ass. I cannot believe I didn't play for 12 years.
I'll say people are still discovering it all the time, though. That's the nice thing about it. And it's honestly really heartwarming for me to know that something we made so long ago is still touching people who say, I mean, we still get donations for this game to this day, and that blows my mind. And it's just crazy. So yeah, I'm always thankful for that. And the fact that you discovered it now and you're enjoying it just as much as people did back then, it's awesome. That's really awesome.
Yeah, and speaking to the level of detail in the feel, that's one of the reasons that I actually kind of transitioned from art into programming, was a lot of times when I would work with another programmer, it would just be frustrating. Like, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel right. Okay, I'll just do it myself then. Like, I'll make it feel the way that I remember it feeling, you know. But that said, there's a lot of, we remember how this felt, the spirit of what these games were about. But on top of that, we had to go back and replay these games, you know, over and over and over, because there's so many little details that are kind of there in your subconscious, but you have to surface them to the reality of the game. Like, you can't overlook it. Like, just little tiny stuff like the voice of referee Mario in Mike Tyson's Punch Out. You know, yeah, yeah, exactly, that kind of stuff. You may not consciously remember that, you know, or the little mutterings he does when there's a decision, you know, but you know, we have to go back, we have to rip the actual sounds, and then I have to decide, you know, at what exact moment is this sound going to play. And so you become very hyper aware of every single little detail. And like you said, maybe some things would have been easier if we were developing it in a Nintendo environment. But we, as Roger has said many times, this game could never fit on a NES cartridge.
Right.
Could never be run on the hardware.
Right.
No,
it's just it's a weird, you know, you have a Venn diagram of people who lived through this era, and a Venn diagram, and that is, you know, the technology of Flash and the internet and all that, and it just the perfect time and place and perfect storm to make something like this.
And to me, there are, you can tell if someone lived through the era when you watch them play through, because we have things in the game that, you know, are intentionally subvert your expectations, but it's stuff people will naturally do if they grew up in that era. Like the very first stage, at the end of it, there's that glitch in Double Dragon where you can just walk up the side wall. And in the original game, you know, it just, you know, you just fall down and glitch it out, whatever.
Yeah.
But you know,
I forgot about it, and Jay mentioned it, and I was like, I killed my soul that I didn't think of it.
Yeah. Well, as long as you go back, you've got to go back and try
Right.
it.
And yeah, exactly. The beauty that has it, there's so much to it that there's replayability to that extent. Far beyond that, of course.
Oh, yeah.
I still am meaning to go back and I mean, I 100% want to hit all those medals, because it's, you know, those all little moments are the things. Yes, I've already said it.
I mean, there's little things too, like you'll pick up the L in Contra and you're expecting a laser, but it shoots lemmings and stuff.
I got a very specific question about that later. I'm gonna put you guys to the task on that. I got a very specific question.
Yeah, and you can on the first level, when Donkey Kong comes out and he's throwing barrels down at, once you kill all the enemies that are down on the lower level, the ladders drop down, and you can climb up and beat the crap out of Donkey Kong. Right. Then the little doorway opens up, and there's Donkey Kong Jr. down there.
Yeah.
If you're fast enough, you can actually climb down the ladders and kick Donkey Kong Jr. and you get an achievement for that. And
it's like a Kong punt achievement. Yeah.
Yeah. Now so many little things, guys. You killed it.
Thank you.
You kind of already talked about that to some degree. I think I was going to ask about, because I talked to, you know, I've talked to a lot of creators with this podcast thing. I did this series called Batteries Not Included, where I talked to a lot of the creator of G.I. Joe, Larry Hama, the creator of Transformers, Bob Budiansky, all these people. And the kernel I'm always digging at with people who create things are that oh shit moment. And you know, you created that program that it was a predecessor to this, Roger. But even to get to that requires a prior moment, I think, that is, again, I'm calling it the oh shit moment, where you're standing in the shower and you're just like, wait a fucking second. I need to do that. I need to see it. I need to explore that. I need to expand on that idea that I can't get out of my head. Yes, you made that program. That was the first, or that animation, rather, that old man thing. But was there, what was the kernel for that? What was the I don't know, the thing your friend said when you're just fucking around hanging out? You're you guys bitching about that old man. You're I gotta fucking explore that more. Can you recall that? by chance?
I mean, back then, I mean, again, I was making, I did like Kill the Duck Hunt Dog. I did a game where you battle a priest from Castlevania and Squiggly Fish Racer, just a lot of NES themed stuff. So yeah, I mean, NES was always on the mind because that was the favorite system of my childhood.
Sure.
But Abobo he was always just my favorite bad guy, and I was always annoyed that he never got more credit than he deserved. Like people remember him as like, oh yeah, he's the guy who always just kicks your ass for a little bit in Double Dragon. His face, it was just his face. Like there was never, I mean, we're talking 8-bit graphics, but his face always stuck with me. I'm like, there's just no more perfect 8-bit encapsulation of anger. He just looks like pure anger, and like there's no joy in him whatsoever. And I just wanted to have a game about an anti-hero. So I started working on that with another programmer, and when that wasn't going too well, I actually got sidetracked because I worked with Tom Folk, the founder of Newgrounds, on Domo Kun's Angry Smash Fest, which was a very similar kind of game, actually. Very stream of consciousness. We're going to just go from game to game and have this crazy, angry character destroying a bunch of stuff. Domo Kun was, this character from Japan and early internet meme and all that. But I wanted to do something fun in the game, and Tom and I just had a blast working on it. I think it took us like a month and a half at the time, and it blew up. It just became this. It took on its own life, and from there, I'm like, okay, I really got to get back on this Abobo thing, because Abobo was always supposed to be much bigger than anything like Domo and all. And in truth, I would have liked Abobo to be even bigger than it is in its current form, but I think that would have killed Nick and Pox. So it's good, and it's also nice that it fits on the classic Mega Man, so like the Sage menu, so it is kind of perfect in that way.
Sure. That's an incredible transition, Roger, because my next question was going to be in that realm.
There you go.
That interview you sent Nick, you guys mentioned that Castlevania and Ninja Gaiden were game universes that just fell short of making the cut, and that's
I really wanted Castlevania.
Yeah, that's super logical, of course.
Metroid too. Yeah,
Okay.
Metroid.
Right. All those are super logical. I think those probably. I mean, I don't know. There's a handful of other potential guesses, I suppose, that a retrohead might throw at you as like the expectation of the one that might have just not made the cut.
Mm-hmm.
But what about in-game secrets? So like I already brought about the revenge moments. These things like the dog, getting to kill the dog that has egged us on for 30 years, 20 years at the time. Were there any of those? That's not a whole game world, but any of those little moments that for some reason or another you guys either had to scrap, chose to, whatever the impetus of it would have been. Was there any of those that like you wish had made the cut or had been in there, and in retrospect or not, that are not driven of just not having done that world, I guess,
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, again, for the Castlevania stage, like I had a lot of ideas for it, and the one thing I really wanted to do was have Dracula show up and try to bite Abobo, but Abobo's skin is too tough and it just breaks Dracula's fangs. Like I had this whole cutscene pictured, and then Abobo, smashing him in some horribly violent way and stuff. But that was definitely a big thing. But aside from that, I mean, we really got to work in most of the jokes and stuff that I really wanted. I know Nick and Fox did as well. We hid stuff like on the Zelda stage, the classic annoying Toad, the princess is in another castle. Like I never got to do anything in Flash with that, and I wanted to do this one stupid little thing where you had a bullet bill if you destroy this portion of the floor and you get down there, and you just get to have bullet bill kill Toad splatter him against the wall. Just silly little things like that.
That was a great moment for sure.
Just things that if you grew up with those games and you were annoyed by those, I still got to keep playing Mario and find this princess. It's a release, so we'll think. I love this thing.
Something
Pretty
funny
good,
about that is because Roger was experienced with doing, flash animations and stuff. There are certain parts like that cutscene with Toad that Roger actually made himself. And so
Oh.
I just took his flash file and dropped it into the code and linked it up.
Yeah, in fact, the very first thing that was ever made for Abobo before I even worked with the previous programmer was the sequence where Abobo's training with Doc carrying him above his head, that whole city thing. That's the very, very first thing. And the whole big montage of the spoiler alert for anyone who has don't listen if you don't want to. But at the end of the game, when Little Mac's head is flying through all those scenes, that was another sequence of animations I just wanted to do. And then, Pox took over the bigger cutscene stuff from there. But it was just like, I gotta have this stuff at the end of the game. I don't care how long it takes.
That was amazing. The Tecmo thing in particular, I got a great kick out of the field goal.
No pun intended. Yeah, and so like some other stuff, Pox Power actually did all the animation and programming for the Urban Champ level. So that, and then that we had it, I called on another friend programmer, Dave Fulton, goes by the name of Jack Smack.
Jack Smack.
We did the Mega Man level. I had started on the Mega Man level, but I was getting burned out and I needed some help, so I passed that off to him and just kind of
great job.
Wrote an API that allowed him with the rest of the system, the live system, and the health bars and the little preview images that show up when you attack an enemy and all that. So it was cool. Everybody was able to contribute in lots of different ways. Not just what you might. It was the roles weren't so perfectly siloed from each other. But I was going to mention the Abobo with Doc bike thing, as that was kind of a seed thing. Like Roger made that animation, and I think very early on you also made the animation of Mega Bobo dropping down with the whole intro to the Mega Man level where he grabs his crotch and does the Michael Jackson.
Pox definitely improved that animation. I definitely done a rudimentary version of it.
I remember those two things as being like, before we even wrote any code, we just had these like animations that were kind of vision board kind of inspiration. Like, we got to fit these in somewhere. Let's write
we got to make a game to connect these things together that we think are cool.
That's honestly how I made a lot of my Flash stuff. Like for the Domo Kun game, I had made like just this rising version of a Domo from the title screen playing with this big heavy metal music. I showed it to Tom. I'm like, we got to make a game with this, and that's all it took. It was just like, this is just ridiculous.
You'd be surprised how often I've heard that. David Crane, when I talked to him, the impetus for Pitfall was very much he created the animation for that little running man, and he was like, Pitfall was entirely a creation around just that animation of that dude. And same thing with Gary Kitchen for Keystone Capers, like that little running cop with the stupid little bat. He's like, I made that thing. And then the escalator too. He's like, I made an escalator also. He's like, I had to figure out a game that I could use this fucking escalator animation that I was so excited about for the 2600.
If you look back to like the 70s and 80s, like half the movies that were made, they were made because someone took a poster to the Cannes Film Festival and would just show that to investors. There was no movie, no script or anything. They would, throw Charles Bronson or Chuck Norris on a poster and say, we've got this movie ready to go. They would get funding for it, and then they would write the script and stuff.
When you could still make money making movies, that was a very different time than now. I can attest to that, guys.
Same kind of thing, though. We would just, do these weird little things, and I also have to mention, as Abobo, this game took 10 years to make, but Nick and Pops and we were making all kinds of stuff in the interim. It wasn't just this one game, and we all had jobs as well. But if you look, we made a Trick or Treat Adventure, which was another huge point-and-click adventure game for us. That was probably the second largest game the three of us worked on together, if anything. So We did
That's a point and click?
Drago game. Yeah, that was our
I'll have to check
that
that
was
out.
our first time being nominated for Game of the Year on Newgrounds. So that was really special for us.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's like a Maniac Mansion,
Oh, man.
Monkey Island kind
Yeah.
of point and click adventure.
Word. Love those. Yeah, we just did
They have
Maniac
a
actually on
tentacle.
the pod.
Mm.
Okay. Music. So the music selection process for this. Now,
Oh,
I don't know if you guys are aware of this actually. Some beautiful soul, I would call them, made an OST playlist on YouTube in the same way. G Blair is I don't know if you're familiar with that guy, or I guess I don't know, it's a guy. I'm assuming it is because only guys are this I don't know, focused on thing or fixated on these types of things, I find. But this Vine Arm Stuff is the name of the account, and he made an OST of the entire game. Are you aware of this or no? Have you ever?
I've heard about it. I haven't actually checked out the full list. I don't think
Okay,
I've definitely seen a few of them, but I was because that was always one of the things people would ask, like, "What's this song from?" So that was.
It's a
I'm glad
51.
someone did it.
It's a 51 track thing. So I mean, do you guys know
Yeah.
how many cues you have in the game? Just offhand?
I can't say I kept track of exactly how many, but yeah, music was definitely one of my things. The only original song in the game was
Right.
the one I wrote for the title screen. After you get to the top of the Statue of Liberty and all that. But beyond that, because I've written a lot of video game music over the years, but beyond that, it had to be NES.
NES originals, right?
So there was no reason to write music beyond that.
Sure. So my question is, I mean, the ones that correlate to the game we're playing that's obvious, but there's a bunch of them that are seemingly to me relatively random inclusions that don't come, and even some of the ones that aren't in the game are from institutions like SMB3 and Metroid and stuff that also are just logical inclusions. But there's some random ones in here. Mock Riders, The Little Mermaid, that one it kind of correlates with, you're obviously in the room with the mermaid, so that makes sense. But Batman Returns, POW, Iron Sword, Werewolf, Flintstones, and Russian Attack are ones that.
I have to say, just quick correction there. The Little Mermaid one, that was actually it was the Goonies 2 music from that game, and the Mermaid is from the end of the Goonies 2 game in there. So it's not. I know a bunch of people probably think it was Ariel, but yeah, that's actually Annie the Mermaid from Goonies 2. So that's why that music.
The song that you're saying, the pixel art. You mean
the pixel art is from Goonies 2, and the song is from Goonies 2.
Also, okay, both. Okay, copy that. Yeah. So Little Mermaid, which I didn't even know was an NES game. So I also, but there's some stuff at the tail end of the NES life cycle that I jumped off the train and got to the Genesis for. So there's things that I missed. So I wasn't going to be too I don't know, parsing of that. So I'm not entirely sure if there is a Little Mermaid game or not. But yeah, when I saw that, I was like, I don't know, that seemed outside the wheelhouse. So that's interesting to hear that that's an incorrect one. Did the other ones ring a bell? Those other Batman Returns, Mock Riders, POW, Iron Sword, Werewolf, Flintstones, Russian Attack.
Oh yeah,
Russian Attack. I remember Russian Attack was one of the first games that we rented over a weekend when we first got our Nintendo. I got my Nintendo a little later, and after we couldn't afford it at first, so we got a little later when the game rental industry was going
already developed,
and it was one of the first games that we rented, and I remember the music from it very.
So was that my question here was, how did the selection process go for those just random insertions? Was there there combating a combat to it at all, or
no? I mean, for certain levels, obviously we wanted very specific music to match it and all, but the other music, a lot of that was me. So I had Winamp at the time, and you could download NSFs, Nintendo sound files, which you could have a plugin with Winamp that would allow you to play them. So it was me going through hundreds of NES games and just skipping tracks, going one by one, and I would listen to them. And I just wanted to, until I heard something that would fit the right mood for the game. So it wasn't always like, this needs to be from that same game that we're matching, because obviously each stage had hundreds of characters from different games in it. So the music didn't have to match every little moment. It was just about what felt right.
The vibe. Cool.
Yeah, exactly.
That was very much the what I was getting
it
at.
was just going through hundreds of those. Same way I had to go through, all these games and extract sprites for them. So,
Yeah, my input on stuff like that was Roger said, "Here it is. Put it in this part."
Okay.
Like, yeah, it sounds good enough to me.
So with another music question. So Mega Man 2, the soundtrack is Mega Man 2 in general, actually, both the soundtrack and the level that's being modeled after, which is Flashman, I believe. Right. That is I mean, it's all these games are revered to no end. So everyone has their little favorite bips and bops from these type of games that are so treasured. Because you could have picked any Mega Man 2 level, and I understand this was kind of outsourced, you were saying, Nick, so maybe this is more of a determination of the individual that you outsourced it to, but how was that level chosen, basically, as the the one out of so many options from Mega Man 2?
Was it Flashman or was it Quickman? I thought it was Quickman.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, yes.
My names.
Yeah, I think clearly it's because that level was the most memorable and frustrating to us from Mega Man 2. Just
Okay.
so iconic that you would just play through that over and over and over.
Those things, the one-hit death things. And great implementation with the laser tag thing is fucking incredible.
I'm glad you noticed the laser tag, because that was just one of the early things I just like, we gotta have that in it. And we also had lightsabers on the sides as well. So
a lot of people don't get the laser tag reference, but laser tag was a big thing.
Oh, it really was
when we were growing up.
Yeah, for sure. I had the basic set, the two black guns, and
I
those
always
like
wanted
not
the
the cool. Yeah, me too. I didn't have it. I didn't have the helmet
never got
or the big cool fluffy vest. I just had like the basic ones that came with the guns.
That's like a seatbelt.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah,
but those are cool ass toys. So the Lemmings thing, you brought it up already. So when I first encountered this, beyond just like the oh shit, that's incredible moment of it. So I was never able to, like, I saw this and like what I want it to be is, yes, you can shoot things, of course, but in the Lemmings game, they run the ones when they blow up, they run back and forth after you designate them and blow up, and you don't exactly know where they're going to blow up. And obviously, they blow up near something that you would like them to blow up near. It blows a little hole in the floor or whatever. So what I want these to do is, if they're close enough to an enemy when they blow up, to affect that enemy in a negative way. I was never able to have them land on an enemy to like fence test this or know for sure whether they do. Can you guys clarify that for me?
They're really there just as a joke. Like, I just wanted the Lemmings to be in there. But Nick, do they actually kill anybody if they explode near them? I don't recall them doing that.
I don't think so.
Like, they bounce off of enemies. That's like the whole joke.
Right.
Like,
I don't remember if they do, but I don't think so. I was after you mentioned it in your review, I watched some more videos and I was trying to detect if it was actually hurting anything. I don't think they do.
Okay.
What would have been really cool though, but I don't think I had the skill at the time, is if they did destroy the terrain, if we had made the terrain,
that would have been really cool. Yeah, for sure.
The only issue,
but then you would have had to deal with the fucking your sprite's interaction with these new holes, and that would have been a nightmare probably.
Okay, you could get stuck potentially.
From that same area in the game though, because I listened to your coverage of it, some of it, and you mentioned that the polar bear, you thought it was like a Coca-Cola polar bear.
Yeah.
That bear is actually from Ice Climber.
Okay.
It comes out from the sides in that game, so you know where that's from.
Okay. Good clarification.
There's also on the vertical version on the vertical stage of the Contra level, there's a dumb joke that we put in there where there's a little fire that's moving across one of the bridges, and you can shoot it. I think it's like 1,000 times, and you can finally just kill the fire. That's
a hell of an achievement. I was gonna say that's a hell of an achievement.
That's gonna kill your thumb.
There is an achievement for it, definitely.
Yeah.
Deservedly so.
Okay. I'm very proud of my implementation of all the guns in the Contra level. It's the one place where we didn't really stay true to the original, because I hated how
wanted to improve them. The spread gun, for example. Oh my god!
I hated how spread. You're like, I got this cool spread gun, but sometimes it would like be missing bullets or they'd be blinking. And it wasn't really like as fulfilling as you wanted the spread gun to be. Same thing with the fire. The
Machine
fire
gun is better too.
was kind of sucky. Yeah, machine gun is better. And I was hoping maybe like people would notice that, and then they get to the lemmings gun. Oh, how's laser going to be improved?
Right.
and yeah, it's makes that joke hit harder when it's
it hit hard. It was definitely like a holy shit. Those are lemmings. Was there anything else like that where in those instances you chose to do the betterment thing, and then there had to be some level of like, is this risking that experience?
Mhm.
That comparable experience thing that was also this big focus of like hitting all those emotional notes, even the shortcomings. So like, were there any other moments like that where you saw where you talked about or saw something that could be bettered, and you're like, no, we fucking have to stay true to the shittiness of the NES here? Do you recall any conversations like that?
The quick man stage was a big one.
That's what I was just going to bring up. Yeah,
is because we tried to make it more faithful, but it was too frustrating. The original game is just too frustrating. Like, I mean, already we have the balloon fight stage, which is
okay. Yeah, that's the other one.
Most people rage quit before they finish that stage and think the game is, they only see half the game.
Yeah, we put in at the end of the balloon fight stage, we put in a code that lets you know, like, you can skip it.
Yeah.
Personally, that's actually one of my favorite stages because I have a very soft spot for that game, and I love what we did with it. And even right at the very beginning, we have Thrilla Gorilla from TNC Surf Design. And if you time it just right, you can knock off his head.
You can decapitate him if you land on.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
exactly. So we finally got the Kid Icarus Reaper in there who summons all the mini Reapers. Like, I love that level. I really do.
Yeah.
But it is.
I remember Roger, you obsessing about the Kid Icarus behavior. That's a game I never really got into, and so I had to go and replay and watch videos and figure out the behavior of that little Reaper that summons mini Reapers to chase you down. Yeah. So we did argue about, well, we just kind of through playtesting, watching people play it at Comic-Con where we had the kind of beta versions of the game. We're just like, this is too much of a blocker for people to enjoy the game. And it was more important. I guess there's that delicate balance of fidelity to the original, but getting people to actually see everything, right. A lot of people, like when we first released it, like on Newgrounds, because people are used to playing small web games, they thought the whole game was just a beat 'em up. They never got to the second level.
Yeah, I mean, at Comic-Con, speaking of that, the first time we demoed it at Comic-Con, people got annihilated by the guy on the skateboard from TNC Surf Designs. Like, they just kept getting run over by him, and we're like, okay, we got to nerf the difficulty on this, or people are going to rage quit the game. So yeah. Well,
that's that one. The balloon fight one. I mean, I posed this theory, just babbling when Jay and I were recording the episode on it. That's one. So again, so many of these games are just, we've played them. The people who had NES have played these games so many damn times that you're talking about instinctual muscle memory. And there are times, yes, where you guys talked about subverting that and going against that. I think I have a theory too, also with the end of the Double Dragon stage. Like, every kid walks into that in the actual Double Dragon boss fight there and tries to knock that guy off the damn conveyor belt into the pit. And I don't think you can even do it, can you?
Yes, you can.
You
can you actually?
There's a little
joke.
achievement joke in there for it. Yeah.
Okay. I tried real hard and I couldn't do it. And I was under the impression that you guys deliberately, knowing every kid or every player is going to walk in there and try to do that out of pattern movement.
It's tough for sure, but it's absolutely doable.
It's possible. Okay.
So you got to try that, and you're already going to see the secret that's at the end of that level that we mentioned, where you walk up the wall.
Right.
So
well, I have went back and done that. Yeah, I have.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, I went back. That's amazing. Yes, with the second S&M room is amazing.
We won't spoil the knocking off the conveyor belt joke.
Okay, great. Great. Sorry, go ahead.
Interesting about that boss fight is the way that level is shaped. We actually had the shape of the screen on the original NES. The bottom section of that level is taken up by the heads-up display, but we actually in our layout of the game, we used the NES screen pixel dimensions, and then we added more at the bottom of that where we put our heads-up display. So on that level, that bottom section actually is original art, just like
Oh, that's cool.
15 pixels or 20 pixels across the bottom is new art we had to add. But it made an issue because we put ground all the way across. We didn't just make the pit extend all the way down.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had to add a railing there so you can't walk in the pit from the bottom.
Okay.
So it's like just little stuff like that we had to adjust. And
Okay.
there's probably some reason why I didn't want to program the walkability different or something. And so we're like, can we just put a railing there?
Simple solution, yeah. Now let's not spend 3 days on this one dumb thing. For sure. Yeah, I mean, yeah, my thinking was that you wouldn't want to deprive a player of that forklift, the whole animation deal. So I was thinking like you took away the ability to take that away from the player. Was my logic for not being allowed,
you're right,
not being able to not move it.
But you have to play it and see what it does.
Right. I will absolutely do that. But anyways, yeah, getting back to my whole thing with the balloon fight thing, like, you know, so many of these games are our muscle memory of playing them is almost instinctual. And Balloon Fight is a game that is in that early run of black box games. And it's just it wasn't a game I'd ever really spent any real time with. So I think that Jay, same thing, my co-host felt the same way. And I think in a general sense, there's just less collective muscle memory. So inherently, it's going to be a level that people have more of a difficulty with, you know?
And that level's also not even the main stage of Balloon Fight. The main stage version of Balloon Fight is basically Joust. It's you know, Nintendo's version of Joust. And but this is the more adventure side-scrolling version of it that you can alternately play. But most people played the main one. But I always loved that side-scrolling one and stuff. So it's you know, it's just random things that you know hit you as a kid. You know that you have fondness for, but not everyone's gonna necessarily know it.
That was a Roger memory. I never played Balloon Fight. I didn't remember the game at all. I didn't know about it. Roger had to educate me. And then I had to go play the game.
Yeah, no, I mean they made statues for it, all kinds of stuff. I mean, you know,
it was one of the
game, but
it was one of the Animal Crossing games you could get. So yeah, clearly the Nintendo also thinks of it as a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, any of those black box ones are, you know, because that's what's launched everything.
But yeah, it's definitely a barrier we saw to most players playing. A lot of them fall off at the Balloon Fight stage. You really have to want it
you'd have to be crazy, I feel, to get to want to stick and play it that much requires an affinity for the NES. I think in the first place, that would shock me that someone would fall off at that part of it, that far in. Like, how could you not want? Like, you know, what I normally, the way I mentioned this in the recording too, but you know, the way I normally for our game episodes, I normally, you know, we got to do a podcast on it, so it's not just playing a game. It's you have to play the game and, you know, do some sort of recording of your thoughts so you can regurgitate these things for 3 hours 2 weeks from now. So like usually I play the games in this incremental way and kind of stop and take notes, and we'll even usually, you know, I'm save stating, so I'll fly back and do that again so I can get a better understanding of what I want or whatever. My half pint analyses of them. But with this, I you know, I couldn't. I was so goddamn, I had to see what was next. And I just like had the intent of doing that. And I don't even think I made it out of the first stage doing that. I was like, fuck this. I got to just play the game as it's meant to be as it's intended to be consumed, and then go back and do it again for the purposes of the podcast, because I can't wait to see what the next thing is. So yeah, the idea of someone having anywhere near my level of affinity for the NES and like being able to stop because of a little bit of difficulty is hard for me to conceive, but
well, the
different strokes for different folks.
With any of the difficulty in the game, you know, I think one of the main things was always in the back of our heads was reward the player. And with Balloon Fight, after you clear that stage, you get a big reward with one of my favorite boss deaths in the whole game. Is battle with the Amazon, and you summon all the WWF wrestlers, and
That's fucking amazing. Yeah.
and yet I did listen to you talking about it. The sleeper hold was Roddy Piper's finishing
Special move. Yeah, it had to. Yeah, it had
that
to be,
was his
yeah.
finishing move.
That's what I said.
He
Yeah.
was, a big talker in wrestling more than anything, but that was his one, and that's the first time he won the Intercontinental Championship was with that move. So,
Okay.
there you
Great.
go.
Great. Yeah, no, that was amazing. Yeah, and it's funny. I played pro wrestling, and it wasn't that I have no total unfamiliarity with it, but I did not have like a developed emotional response to any of those characters. And it was funny to me. Jay, my co-host, he had that like I hated the Amazon. I was surprised that any of the pro wrestling characters had like I don't know hit him that hard as a child. Was surprising to me.
We
So good choice.
We almost went with Starman because a lot of
He's the final boss, isn't he? He's the final boss, I think. Starman.
No, that's Grand Puma.
Oh, Grand. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
But Starman, he's another one that a lot of people remember, and he was more of one of the good guys, I guess I would say. And Abobo is like the whole game. He's kind of killing all the good people throughout. Like that's the whole point of it is the anti-hero thing. But I don't know. Everyone just knew the Amazon, so it just like, and he's a cheater in the game. He pokes your eyes, he bites you, and all that. It's just like
great heel. Yeah.
You gotta go with the Amazon. I don't care if it's not one of the good guys. Bad guys can fight other bad guys too.
That game was interesting to program because it plays so poorly. Like it's not very intuitive compared with like what modern people expect from a wrestling game, where you can just mash buttons and you'll do cool moves. That game was hard to not introduce more modern sensibilities into that game.
And that was the only one you put the controls on up front, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. At the very beginning.
Punch Out. Yeah, Punch Out as well. Correct. Yeah.
And at the very beginning, we did do an overlay on Double Dragon. That's something we added late in the process from watching people play at Comic-Con that they didn't necessarily know what to do immediately when the game started.
But yeah, on that pro wrestling fight, like there's some little things that I always wanted to do. This was again circling back to talking earlier, like when I was a kid, there's the referee in there with you and there's the cameraman. You couldn't touch them in the game, but in our game, you can absolutely kill both of them. So it's just little things.
The picking up the chairs and using the chairs was also an extra addition that wasn't in the original.
No, and the chairs I wanted to do too, because in the other NES wrestling game, tag team
WWF.
wrestling, tag team wrestling was my childhood favorite one, aside from pro wrestling. And that's also where Strong Bad from Homestar Runner originated, was from tag team wrestling, because the other team on that, you had the Ricky Fighters, who you played as, if you're going against the computer, and the computer was always the Strong Bads. So, that's where that character originates.
Yeah, one of the the moments that I remember when we first released the game, where we'd been working on it for so long and we were so used to the typical Flash game cycle where you make a small game in a couple weeks and you get all this dopamine like response and people are reviewing it and it's maybe going viral or whatever. But with Abobo, we had been in like under the radar development mode for so many years. You start to wonder, like, is this gonna like resonate with anyone? Is anyone gonna get this? Is it gonna like make sense? Like, are people just gonna die on the first level and think that's it, like, and not get any of the jokes or whatever? So there's all that fear when we finally put it out there. And there was a YouTube video of a guy playing through it where he was watching that cutscene with the pro wrestlers, and before they did their moves, first of all he was just cracking up laughing, like just howling, and then he called out every single move before the guy did it. He's gonna do the sleeper, he's gonna do the monkey press, he's gonna do the leg drop, he's gonna do the tombstone, and then they did it and he was just like, he was just exploding. And that was a moment where I was like, okay, I think I think we dialed into something here for
It's
sure.
it was the same with the video games, awesome video games crew. If you watch their playthrough of it, because it's all of them sitting around the television together, and they're just screaming when all of those wrestlers get summoned in there. It was just it was great. But I'll also say, as long as this development cycle was, and there were doubts along the way. Every time we did Comic-Con, that was just like it revitalized us. It was just like, all right, people are having a blast with this, and that's what kind of helped push us forward a lot. Some of that feedback was super valuable, but it was also just encouraging for us because, I mean, we were working on other games and projects on the side as well when we weren't working on this thing, but we knew we had something. It was just like how many people were actually going to see it was the question. And
For sure.
What am I? We had buddies like Tom Folk in addition to the Comic-Con promotions and all that, who helped really give it a great launch when we did that big countdown page and everything. So there was a lot behind it, and it's kind of crazy for me to I look back on it, of course, there's watching all the people on YouTube playing, but it's also like our Flash game got into Game Informer magazine, like things like that, like never would have imagined something like that, like just like getting that wide and having Kishimoto comment on the Double Dragon factor, things like that. It's just like just unreal, and we had other companies, coming by us at Comic-Con and saying, like, we can't, publicly, embrace this, for legal reasons or whatever, but we love your game. So things like that. We had a lot of encouraging moments throughout.
Amen. One of my favorite cartoonists has this cartoon about the creative process that, like, essentially it starts up here. I think it's just like line graph, and it starts up here, and like this idea is great. I'm great. Everything I make is great. And then it's this gradual decline that bottoms out right before it comes out into the world. It's just like, this gradually increasing, this sucks, this sucks, this sucks. And then when it's out, everybody loves me and everything's great. All the way back up, So yeah, that's got everyone's creative process falls into that peak and valley system, I think. You mentioned the beginning of the game, Nick, the splash screen at the beginning. I had a question about that. Is that just a Flash game format thing? Okay. I was surprised that you didn't perfectly match the start of an NES game when, I figured it had to be a format thing. Okay.
So it's due to the fact that it was released on the web originally, and there's usually a loading screen for Flash games. And so you don't see it if you've downloaded the game, but Abobo is actually standing in front of a TV, and while the game is loading, he's pulling an NES cartridge out, looking at it, putting it in, pushing it down and hitting power, and the red light is flashing.
That's great.
And then he takes it out and he blows in it, and then he puts it back in, and it keeps flashing until the game is fully loaded.
Right.
And then finally it turns on, and he's like, all right, let's go.
Amazing.
And then on the TV there, you had mentioned, what are these, images?
Right.
There's like a lady in red. There's this orange-haired guy.
I was sure the one was Rick and Morty. That doesn't line up timeline wise.
So those are actually so one thing we would do is one way you could make money on your game is to put an embedded ad into the game. And so usually there would be advertisements there from like CPM Star that would play in that TV while the game is loading. And so if anybody clicked those ads, we would get some click revenue off of that. But if the game is played in a way where it can't connect to CPM Star, we had it coded to fall back on showing images from games we had made that you could click on and go play some of our other games. So
that the red-haired guy, for example, that's from that Trick or Treat adventure game we mentioned before, and the Red Snow one was from the Snow Runs Red, which is a game all about Mrs. Claus murdering a bunch of
rampage
children.
Great.
It's kind of like a tribute to Smash TV, essentially, but with a Christmas theme. So.
Or if you've ever seen Scrooged, the beginning of Scrooged.
Amazing.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Arguably Bill Murray's best movie.
Yeah.
What about Bob and Scrooge?
Right up there.
And then maybe Groundhog Day.
Throw Groundhog Day in there.
Amazing. And then so what the two Star Wars guys in front of the haunted house? What was that one?
Yeah, you should talk about that, Roger.
That's called Haunted House Candy Hunt, and
Okay.
it's about two very minor characters from Star Wars, Jack Porkins and Ponda Baba, and they're just at a haunted house because I wanted them in a haunted house, and it's a game where they hold hands the entire time, so it's a weird gaming experience because you can lose one of your guys while the rest of your character keeps going forward. So Atari 2600 style game,
Okay.
but it's one of my favorite early Flash games that I got to work on. I was just really happy with it, and what a
So tell us
ridiculous joke.
who Jack Porkins and Ponda Baba are.
Ponda Baba is the one who gets his arm cut off in the bar in
The
Star
cantina.
Wars, in the cantina, right? And Jack Porkins is the TIE fighter with the chin strap that doesn't connect, and he's just one of the ones who explodes. He gets killed.
Stay on target guy.
Yes.
Stay on target. Stay on target.
It's amazing. So you've carved out this a niche of sorts of exploring these ancillary characters, beings and their worlds.
Kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Roger likes to champion the unsung hero.
Great.
I mean, that's. I mean, look, we have a whole level dedicated to another early Black Box game, Urban Champion, which is, it's a very basic game, and that whole level is really just a joke. Like, you can't lose the level. Like I remember us talking about, like, you just want that little sound if he tries hitting a Abobo, like, he can't do any damage to him and stuff. But, if there was any game that I would have swapped out for Castlevania, that would have been it, honestly. But I love what we did with that level, though. Like, we have like little details, like the cop coming by and then whistling, like pretending they're not really fighting. Those are real things that happened in that game. And unless you played Urban Champion, like, you wouldn't know that.
Yeah.
But then we also had the fatality and friendship at the end of it, little things.
That was in the original, though, wasn't it?
Oh yeah,
The fatality. Yeah.
Is there a babality too? There was the friendship.
No. We
should have
talked
done
about
it.
it. So,
Okay.
but yeah, that was just one of those things that
Okay.
just didn't happen. But we talked about it.
I'm sure. My sole complaint for this game, guys, is
I know.
yeah, I mentioned it. So if you listen, you'll know it already. But
Wizards and Warriors.
yes, the dangly leg. How could you guys forget that?
It was because
perfect creative work.
Because I remember it, but I didn't remember it happening on the ground. If he had landed like up on a tree branch, I was like, oh, no, that wouldn't matter on the ground. But I didn't.
He does it everywhere. That's why it's so goofy of an animated and cute of an animation. I think
Such a tiny
little.
little animation, but I'm glad you noticed it, though, because
Yeah. That's more of a just an inroad to the question, like, what other of those, like, how do you guys cope with, like, you created this incredible work, and the internet does the internet. So what are some other ones? Are there any other ones, I guess, where people have written in or reached out to you over the years, like, what's this?
Yeah. I think one for sure is on the Mega Man level. In real Mega Man has two different height jumps. So if you tap, he jumps a short jump, and if you long press the button, he does a higher jump. And so for a lot of bosses or different enemies, you would jump to a different height to be more accurate with your shooting. That was one people have complained about, and I wish, looking back now, it's like, couldn't we have just figured that out, how to make that work? But we tried it, and it never felt quite right. And it was
I remember trying, and it wasn't necessary for that stage or for that boss. So accuracy for the jump height thing, it's just one of our nitpicky things. Would have been nice to get it right, but Nick's absolutely right. It was not feeling right.
I did want it for the one laser bar thing where you drop down and you have to hop over that thing. I did want it for that. I thought of that, but that was another thing, kind of like the Lemmings thing, where I wasn't able to discern for sure whether it was there or not. So it's not something I would have complained about either way, because I wasn't sure enough. But I was absolutely sure that Kuros's leg should have been swinging.
I was just happy to have the Wizards and Warriors referenced in it because again, that was I still think that is one of the all-time great NES games, and
That was a good one. That was our second game episode ever. Yeah, that is
nice.
it's a good game.
Yeah, and congrats on your 100, by the way.
Thank you, thank you. I can't believe
Thank you
anyone
so
listens
much
to it.
for having ours be such a big part of it.
It's the perfect.
It's an honor.
It was the perfect celebration. It was the perfect celebration. I don't think we could have chosen anything that would have been a better, more emblematic of celebrating. Because it's kind of we're hitting right now. Because I don't know if you guys glean like exactly what the pod's like deal is, but we're going through these magazines in newsstand order. So we started with the first Nintendo Fun Club News. Our very first magazine issue was the issue 1 of Nintendo Fun Club News in 1986, I think that was maybe 87. And then we have slowly worked through those, and as well as the Sega newsletters rather, into once they became Nintendo Power, Nintendo. Then we introduced GamePro as like a third party objective opinion on these things, because obviously Nintendo and Sega's proprietary magazines are very slanted towards their shit. So we wanted like a third party magazine to kind of give something that was a little more unbiased. And then we're playing the games, so where we're at in the timeline at episode 100, like I think we just did March 91. So like we're kind of in the era where the SNES is going to hit in a few months, and we're going to start losing Nintendo as a focus. So it could not have lined up more perfectly timeline wise for our stupid little objective to have this thing that was just a celebration of this era of what we've been covering for, I don't know, like 4 or 5 years now.
That makes me think that is even more special than when Doc watches Little Mac's head fly and he says, "Join the Nintendo Fun Club today, man."
That's one of my favorite games in the game. Actually, I'm really happy with that.
Yeah, the whole. I mean, it's entirely apparent in the recording as well. But I mean, I didn't look at anything. I didn't do any research beforehand. I just dove into it, and I was just ripping through towards the end of the game there, not looking up anything, and I wanted it so badly to be that's my favorite game. I wanted it so badly to culminate with Mike Tyson's Punch Out, and when it cut to that goddamn sequence, I was like, "Oh my god, yes!"
But again, with that, we wanted to subvert people's expectations because they're expecting to play on Little Mac's side, but instead they're playing from the boss's perspective,
which was amazing. Yeah,
that was fun.
Amazing.
So here's a question for you: What would you think if there was a Nintendo a Nintendo Power issue? Like if someone made a Nintendo Power issue today that had Abobo's Big Adventure.
I mentioned this in the recording. I think that is a brilliant. I mean, you guys don't have any incentive to market this, but that would be just an incredible piece of retro game art that I would love to see. Yes, I mean that I can't believe some, I call them psychopaths endearingly, but I can't believe one of the psychopaths out there that is just fixated on the stuff as much as we obviously are hasn't done that has the artistic acumen to do so. I can't believe it hasn't been done, and then even Bach, I'm surprised no one's even done like a true NES, the tri-fold, like you can get off cover project or whatever that is.com.
I've seen people do some stuff like that for sure. Like someone even made, their own arcade cabinet.
Right.
We used to provide like the specs for that stuff. I don't know if we even have those anymore, those files. And you got, I know your listeners can't see this right now, but you have the Abobo poster, the Aboboster from the game that
for sure
you unlocked and all for beating the game and everything.
And that's amazing. That's what I just mean. That the artwork kind of exists already. The idea that someone hasn't amalgamated it into the NES box format or in turn, like I said, a Nintendo feature or a Nintendo Power feature is just mind-boggling to me. And I wish I had the artistic acumen for it because I certainly would love to see that.
No, someone definitely sent me like a 3D rendering of an Abobo NES box, and actually,
it had Abobo. I think as a send up of Super Mario Brothers 3 with but Abobo's flying.
Okay,
I just searched for it.
That does sound kind of familiar, actually. Yeah, if you guys have it or find it, please do send it over. I'll share it with the gang.
I don't know. I is a good take on it, but it's not. I don't know if I would consider it the official one, but
no. So someone on Newgrounds art basement, they used the Abobo poster on the cover of it, and then made the back box,
the full wraparound.
Like okay, and the Nintendo logo is replaced by Newgrounds and all. It's out there, but there were like some 3D renderings that someone did of the box at one point. We did a bunch of like art contests and other fun things over the years. So we had a lot of great stuff from all the fans out there.
Yeah, one of the coolest ones for the 10-year anniversary, we did an art contest, and somebody did like a 16-bit style rendition of the Contra battle with Craneby.
Oh god, yeah.
Okay.
Like totally upgraded all the graphics to like 16-bit level. And it
Amazing.
was pretty epic.
Have you guys seen it just got one of the YouTube shows that I can't remember which one it was off the top of my head now, but they just did a feature on him. He's basically porting a lot of the NES classics to SNES architecture, and he, you know, Metroid, Legend of Zelda, he's done a bunch of them now of the classics, and just, you know, I mean, it's the exact same game, just in SNES graphical fidelity and kind of more of the feel, and obviously mapped to the NES SNES controller, yada yada yada. And yeah, it would be, again, just, you know, wish lists of people with unlimited amount of time and unlimited capability for this sort of thing. That would be something that's amazing too, to see this game, all these SNES things in SNES architecture with just those slight upgrades. It would just be a fun art project to see too.
I found that 3D rendering that I mentioned. If anyone wants to see it, just look up Super Abobo 3 on Newgrounds, and it's made by an artist named Tom Doy. And it's a great little pixelated box rendering of what Abobo would look like on the cover of a Super Mario Brothers 3 box. And
I'll look it up and share it when I drop the interview.
Yeah. So again, we just had so many wonderful little things like that.
Oh, and he's got the Power Glove on.
Yeah.
Schmauered up, guys. We don't ever say Power Glove on this fucking podcast.
Tell me about that. Why is
serious vendetta? Because I had one. That's why.
Oh yeah, I mean it was an awful controller. But,
a piece of junk.
I burned. I had the vinyl case. I had the whole deal. I was dialed in, and I like this to me was going to be again. We're talking about Mike Tyson's Punch-Out enthusiast, even at that young age. I couldn't get past King Hippo when at the time I had the Power Glove, even with the NES controller. But I still loved that game, and getting the Power Glove was like I was going to be able to live this game now. And maybe this, I don't recall it viscerally or specifically, rather, but it may very well even have been in my mind the key to unlocking getting past King Hippo. Who knows? But it was 100% a letdown in every possible way. And not only was it a letdown, but I could have spent that gift opportunity that I acquired that with on something that I could have gotten a lot more out of, a game. Perhaps
a lot of people felt that way too.
Yeah.
But I actually think a worse controller, which also was hyped to me at the time, was the U-Force.
Yeah.
And
also shitty, but that one didn't get me, so I don't have this emotional response.
For anyone who's not familiar with it, it's basically, it looks like a laptop, or one half of a Battleship board game, and the idea was you could wave your hands in front of the sensors and it would detect it, so you could punch, throw a punch, but it just
didn't even kind of work. Yeah.
No.
Here's the thing: they didn't get distributed and marketed by Mattel. That's part of the thing too. So, like I said, we've went through every one of these magazines, and Mattel has been rocking. It just no shame the amount of money they put behind marketing that total piece of shit. It's in every issue of Game Pro. It's in every issue of Nintendo Power. All the way from the moment it was released, it's still, and they're like these huge 2-page ads. They're wasting 2 pages on it, and just there was even one time eventually, I'm sure once sales started to indicate to them that sales weren't going to be what they had hoped, or the response to it wasn't what they were maybe aspiring to. They included this bullshit rebate thing, like a $10, some sort of rebate that was not a sufficient apology for what it was.
I got scammed by it. I got it for Christmas. And the whole so excited getting it unpackaged. I'd seen the Wizard movie.
Yeah, of course, that's what most people got into.
Yeah, where he's beaten Mike Tyson.
Where the "It's So Bad" comes from.
And
awful.
Yeah, and really the only thing it ended up being good for was wearing while you were playing laser tag to feel like you had a robot.
It's such
Did you eventually just cut the cord off so you didn't even deal with the
Yep.
cord?
it's a legit fun thing to wear, for sure.
That was
So
yeah, it was amazing.
and
But then-
you know, the nostalgia for it is
Yeah, even that I remember that case, that molded plastic that it sat in, and that vinyl case that you could buy for it. It said Power Glove and like
Mhm.
it had like this black emblem on it, and it said it in this turquoise blue on the front. It was a very pretty thing to have sitting next to your Nintendo. But yeah, the second you took it out of that case, the allure quickly, precipitously dissipated.
One of the most shameful things I remember is wearing the Power Glove, playing Mike Tyson's Punch Out, but having my brother play it like an NES controller on my arm. It's
Yeah.
like,
well, I would do it with my own. I would eventually, because you get it going, and you're like, you know it's gonna fail you, but you're trying to do it. You're trying to use this damn thing anyways. You put that shit around your TV, you're gonna use it, but you get going and you're dying, and you're like, fuck it, and you start with one hand. You're playing on a full NES controller with one hand on your arm, because. Terrible.
Even Super Glove Ball, which was the game that was made for the Power Glove, did not work there.
Did not work right.
So,
Yeah.
So
Schmauer Dove, not the Power Glove on the ISO podcast.
It's still such a big part of that era that
Sure.
there was no way we weren't gonna include it in the game, and what a perfect moment for it, right? Like
100%.
right? Yeah.
Well, finally getting to use it in an advantageous manner
Right.
in the Mike Tyson's Punch Out realm was incredibly satisfying and a great revenge moment in its own little way. To kind of wind this whole idea down, guys. Sorry, go ahead.
I got a question for you.
Sure.
So I've heard that the reason the original NES was marketed with like the Rob the Robot and the Zapper was because Atari had bombed so hard. They wanted to make this not seem like a video game system, but more like a toy. Do the early issues of Nintendo Power kind of
corroborate that?
Yeah, do they avoid talking about stuff as like this is a video game?
But
no,
the
because
first time Nintendo Power came out, that was already Super Mario 2 era.
The
robot way predates that.
Yeah, it started the whole, and forgive me if this is, redundant for you guys and you're already aware of this, but the Nintendo Fun Club News, the predecessor of Nintendo Power, was this 7-issue thing that they were doing. It was just a newsletter that when you bought an NES, you mailed in your warranty card or whatever, and it put you on a mailing list, and they just started sending these things to those people as a way to market new shit, basically. And the response to them was incredible, of course, because they were fucking amazing. So they realized, like, wait a minute, we could turn this into a magazine and sell it to people, and sell it to these people, or at least get more advertising, make it more of a thing, and dedicate more resources to it and expand what it can do as an advertising tool. And that was the whole lead up to that. And that was only created basically because they were killing it. This was 1987. They were rocking and rolling already. That was a 1985 idea before they had gotten a foothold in the US market already,
Gotcha.
So yeah, but what does corroborate that idea is that there is the software support for both the Light Zapper, but particularly the robot, but particularly Rob, is non-existent. There's a few cool games. Obviously,
you got Sackum, you got
Gyromite, and that's fucking
classic,
it. And those are terrible examples of an act. They don't even really
actually. I see. I differ with you on that. Like, I think they're actually quite brilliant. They're not easy games by any means, but the fact that they were able to pull this off with a video game with those limitations back then and still have it interact with this robot that's using
it's a cool technical achievement. No, I'm not denying it's a cool technical achievement, but the actual video game, because there are all too many stories out there of the robot is actually an impediment to success in the video game. You can do better by cheesing the robot's bullshit in the game than to truly utilize what Rob can bring to,
But my brother and I would play that. We were lucky enough to get.
Did you have one? Oh my god!
When it came out.
I had it killed for it. Robots were such a fucking thing. I wanted to
Circuit City and all. So
JC Penney catalog. There was a whole few pages every time my grandma got one of those that was just dedicated to these robots that supposedly could bring drinks to you or whatever. And that's all I wanted.
So we got it, and it just endlessly made us laugh. It was just like this little squishing sound that the guy made whenever one of those pillars squished him, because you didn't drop the gyroscope on it in time, or it wore off. So I don't know. We really had a lot of fun with that.
Okay. Well, Roger, this is the most fondly I've ever heard anyone talk about Rob. In actuality, again, there's one thing: it's the nostalgia prestige of it in people's minds of just this cool thing and how much it represents that era of the NES in particular. But I don't think I've ever heard anyone talk about the actuality of using it in such a fond way. So that's great.
I had as much fun with that as I did with the Zapper at the time. So I really did.
That's amazing. Yeah. Well, Nintendo also didn't support it
for the Zapper.
Yeah, not that much more, but yes, definitely.
Not a lot, but they did have games like Wild Gun and things like that. So,
right. But yeah, as far as like actual, I mean, part of it, there's nothing to cover. So what can you put in the magazine is maybe part of it. But there was, the early Nintendo Power. I mean, I'm not even sure if I can think of an actual feature done on a Zapper game. That's a fantastic trivia question. I mean, there's certainly, because the back of the mag has the pack watch and like the little bits and bobs of games that might be coming out, or just letting you know that a game did come out, and you might get like a half page or maybe even a full page in some cases. Even that for a Zapper game, I'd question whether that happened. But see,
I feel like all the Zapper games, the support for them, like I'm trying to remember if there were other games that came out that late that involved it.
Right. I mean, yeah, they might not. There were a few. There were like that LJN game that was from a movie or made into a movie, I think. Gotcha, maybe I think it's called. It was like a capture the flag, but shooting something or other. Was a pretty late Zapper game, and I remember that getting a little bit of Nintendo Power coverage. Now that I think about it, in the back of the mag, not a whole feature, just like a little tidbit on it.
I mean, you had Chiller, but that was never going to get coverage.
That was one also, much like Power. I mean, that would have never, because it wasn't licensed, it would never been in the Nintendo advertising, but they advertised the shit out of that in GamePro early on. Yeah.
No, I guess it did do some later. I forgot Bayou Billy did have
Bayou Billy. Well, that
gallery.
I forgot about that. That's true.
Yeah, that was, and that got a ton of coverage. So yes, that's true. That's true. It's not a dedicated Zapper game, but it's like Operation Wolf was a Zapper game, but also same thing. You could play that game with the controller as well. So it was not a dedicated Zapper.
Well, that's what I like about Duck Hunt too. You could also have someone control one of the ducks.
I never knew that until just a couple of years ago, which blows my mind.
Pro tip.
Yeah, very cool. And but I mean, what it created, there's so much of playing that game was just a one kid experience where the other kid is just waiting for his turn. The idea of introducing a way to like create a head-to-head opportunity with that game is amazing. I can't believe I was neglected of as a kid. I'm sure many others were as well.
Nintendo had a bunch of geniuses for sure.
No question. No, they did.
I
was going to change everyone's lives.
I was going to mention, speaking of Rob the Robot and kind of that era of there's like
operating buddy.
Yeah. There's like Johnny Five, and there's
Short Circuit.
Batteries Not Included, robots. And then there's the one from Rocky that he gives to Paulie.
Yep.
I was going to mention
that game a while ago.
Yeah, we made a game called Ivan Drago Justice Enforcer.
Again, another anti-hero game.
As an anti-hero, kind of a predecessor to Abobo. He starts out in like a dark cell in the US with a giant Gorbachev head speaking to him and giving him his mission to exact vengeance on the weak, soft American populace. So he comes out of his hiding and fights down the streets and ends up fighting Apollo Creed. And I think he fights some Tyrannosaurus Rexes in there, and
there's all kinds of random stuff. You can actually unlock the T-Rex and then
play as the
T-Rex. I think the third time, so
there's a cameo of the
Paulie's robot.
Paulie. Yeah,
there you go. And it's funny because they Stallone did a director's cut of Rocky IV recently, where the robot, which he hates, he actually removed it entirely from the movie.
Oh wow, interesting.
That
was probably paid advertising to some degree. Someone probably paid to force them to do that at the studio or something.
I'm not sure, but it was definitely something like he got there's like 30 minutes of footage that are swapped out in the film, so that's not the only thing, but Yeah,
And it
that
also,
robot
much
does
like the
not
Jaws
exist in the
Jaws
comic.
shark, it probably didn't work for shit the way they wanted to. So,
It served its purpose in the movie, but yeah,
yeah.
it's just I like it, and I know Nick likes it, so we had fun throwing that in the game,
Yeah,
and
I love the
letting the
fact that
players run
that
it.
Polly reprogrammed it to be a female companion.
That is amazing. Yeah. Uh, okay. Well, I only got one more for you guys. I'm happy to answer more for you, Nick, if you have more for me. But
I'm fascinated that there's a whole podcast dedicated to going through the issues of Nintendo Power.
it's
I never would have imagined.
it was born out of the idea. I mean, I'm a history nut in general, and I clearly love retro gaming, and it was kind of the intersection of those two fascinations. And yeah, I mean, it started with me and my little brother, who, we obviously grew up together playing these games, and it was a way. He's back in Ohio, I'm out now, LA now, and it was a way for us to kind of just hang out and bullshit, especially the early episodes with just he and I. Before he dropped off because he didn't have time for it. My buddy, one of my college buddies, Jay, came in as the kind of more regular co-host. There's some of those early episodes. I can't believe anyone ever listened to it. It's just like us just like talking about some of the most obscure shit in so many cases, but connecting it back to these Nintendo moments and these Nintendo memories we have and stuff. And just you kind of using the periodicals as a guide to kind of relive those moments and relive those memories and whatever. And I think that's maybe the people that do connect to it, that's why, in the same way that I've mentioned, kind of my love for this comes out of the emotional responses to it. And I think art in general, of course, I'm not saying anything that's not obvious. Art that gets enjoyed at all usually has that component to it. And I think that's why the people that do listen to it, which blows my mind that anyone exists that does, they get out of it is how closely tied these things are to our memories and the, feelings we have for them. And we aren't shy about, making it about that and less about just, the history lesson or whatever going through these things. We also do try damn hard to make it, informative if you actually don't know all these things already, like we maybe do. I try to pepper that in as well, actually make it, knowledgeable analyses of this shit and not just us rambling the entire time, although much of it is still nonetheless that.
Well, you do know your field, so
Thank you.
that's coming from fellow NES. So
Amen. Well, my last one for you is I want to hear you guys define the word nostalgia in your own words, not the dictionary definition of it, what the word means to you in your own words. Went to Roger first, maybe Nick start this one. Went to Roger first a bunch of times, I mean. Nick.
That's a really hard question. I want some time to think about it, and I want to look up like the Greek root of nostalgia and see if there's any insight there.
No, just it's the point is what it emotionally means to you, not what it logically means to you.
Yeah. I remember a moment watching the James and Mike video game nerd analysis of our of Abobo's Big Adventure. And towards the end of it, there's just a moment where he gets kind of quiet and I imagine to myself, so I'll share a couple experiences. This is one experience. I imagine to myself there was so much stuff, so many connections, just all snapping together, and so many memories just flooding into his mind that I feel like he shed a tear. I feel like his eyes teared up and he was like, I can't believe this, like that. I think nostalgia has something to do with connection with other people. Like, and that is a really satisfying, like, community ape tribe sensation to know that your thoughts and feelings are shared by another person on such a deep level. Like, and it's not superficial. It's like if you heard that song "Killing Me Softly," where you go to a lounge, you're not expecting anybody to really talk to you or know you, and you hear a lounge singer sing your life story, that you haven't seen or known this person, but they've lived your experiences so well that it seems like they're killing you with every word that they speak. That feeling of connecting with another human being and knowing that we're all human, we all go through the same things, we all feel experiences, similar feelings and joys and pains and sorrow and all that stuff, that somebody else gets it, just makes you there's such a deep feeling of contentment and fulfillment when that happens. And yeah, that's kind of how I think about this whole thing. Like there's been a little criticism, but not as much as I originally thought about us, you know, just regurgitating, like stealing, ripping sprites, you know, just, you know, rehashing something, because like it's so much more than just us stealing content. Like we did it to a level where it's its own new thing. Even though, yes, it makes references and literally, you know, uses other people's creative works, but we brought so much to it that it really transformed the whole thing into something. I don't know. I would say it's a unique work. It's creative on it stands on its own feet while also being built on the shoulders of a lot of other people.
Anyone who says that, their words should be disregarded from the jump, because for them to say that, I think demonstrates a complete lack of understanding of what the game is meant to be, or how the game is meant to be received and interpreted. So I mean, yeah, I think just to offer that criticism, I think inherently undermines your authority to be giving it. If that makes sense.
So the other experience that comes to mind that kind of captures it, it was a really strange sensation that I had. I went and saw Wreck-It Ralph in the theaters, and this was just a couple years after we had released Abobo's Big Adventure.
Not long.
And I literally sat there watching the credits, and I was like, my name should be in these credits. Like,
we had people messaging us saying this movie ripped you guys off the road. I didn't, but that's.
I guarantee you that one of the people that wrote that Wreck-It Ralph script had played our game. You know, and
I actually haven't seen it.
Oh yeah,
I haven't seen Wreck-It Ralph. No.
And I just sat there kind of like, you know, because Disney has the money and, you know, the clout, you know, they're making trillions of dollars off of this thing. And I just felt like, man, we should get a piece of this. Like one of my favorite things that you said in your podcast was these guys should be living in a mansion in Malibu. They should have everything they want in the world. Like this should, you know, like I had that feeling of connection with you that like you got it, like you understood really the the level of love and work and time and effort and thought and all the creativity that went into what we made. And so, you know, that couldn't agree with you more. But it's like also, you know, would that take some of the beauty out of it for us to be, you know,
I don't know. Depends how nice that house is in Malibu, probably.
Yeah. I don't know. The fact that we did this in our spare time, you know, it really it adds an extra layer to the story.
Yeah, you guys feel it. Well,
I'm actually in a house in Malibu.
Yeah, Roger hasn't shared any of it with me. He just funneled it all into his offshore Cayman Islands.
Well, Nick, you really fucked over Roger here going first, because that answer was pretty damn good. How are you gonna follow that off, Roger?
I'm not.
That's
no. True nostalgia for me is it's something that takes you back to a time that means more than anything to you. It's a time, because you're not having nostalgia for bad things. You're having nostalgia for something that meant a lot to you as a kid, and that can be anything. It can be you know, eating some food that you haven't had since you were a kid. It can be watching one of your favorite movies for the 500th time or whatever, because like you know, I know you recognize that Goonies, you know, I quote, Goonies never say die at the very end of our game, and that was kind of like the credo in making Abobo, was, you know, just like keep going forward with this. You know, we're gonna make this thing, we're gonna see the light at the end of the tunnel. But you know, a movie like Goonies, you know, I've seen hundreds of times by this point and stuff, but that was one of my rainy day movies. I mean, it starts out with a rainy day and everything. So it's whatever just takes you back to those times as a kid, and that mean a lot to you. You know, if I pick up a baseball bat, I'm immediately transported back to playing home run derby with my brother in our cul-de-sac as kids, just hitting tennis balls. One of us pitching, one of us trying to hit the ball as hard as we could. Little things like that. But with a game like this, it's about tapping into those experiences that meant a lot to people who grew up with the Nintendo Entertainment System. We wanted something that no matter what game was your favorite on the NES, something in there is going to tap into it. So to me, that's what this nostalgia, true nostalgia is about. It's not about like trying to make a quick buck, or you know, we never set out with this game like, oh, we're going to get a mansion out of this in Malibu, right? Like, that wasn't it. You don't do something like this because
Speak for yourself.
Okay, all right. Well, in my case, at least, no, we never set out to you know, make millions out of something like this. You don't do that for this reason. If we wanted to do that, we would have spent 10 years working on an original IP entirely without, you know, this. But this was a labor of love, and it's because we grew up on these things that we loved, and we thought they deserved to be preserved, not just for people who grew up with it, but also for future generations. It's a wonderful thing, you know. Nintendo to this day, you know, we just saw the World Championships card game come out, and they actually have the physical tribute card and stuff. And all kids now from a totally different generation, who in all likelihood never would have played that stuff, are getting a chance to try little snippets of those games, and maybe that makes them go back and try the full games. Well, with the Abobo, it's the same thing. You know, I really wanted to have this thing that tapped into all these important games from my childhood, from Nick's childhood, from Fox's childhood, and let people experience them the way, you know, that meant a lot to us, but also with some laughter in it, and the clear love that I hope shows that we put into this. And you know, it's just something that's supposed to make you feel good, and you know, nostalgia, if it's done right, it's not going to feel shallow or superficial or something that is just there to make a quick buck, because there's plenty of nostalgia like that, and I don't consider that real nostalgia. But there's nostalgia with heart, and you know, for all the dumb jokes and sight gags and everything that we have in the game and stuff, there's also hopefully for anyone who plays through the whole thing, they can feel all the heart that went into it. And to me, that's what nostalgia is. It's tapping into those special things from your childhood, whatever they may be. That you know, it can be a smell, it can be a taste, it can be a visual thing, but it immediately transports you back to that time, and it makes you feel good all over again, no matter what's going on in your life. So there's nostalgia.
Amen. Well, you guys fucking nailed it. So great work. We always start our episodes with a question to each other about what are we jamming at now, just to talk about the games that we're jamming on now. So to get us out of here, I'll ask you guys, what are you jamming on now, both playing and working on, since you have a cool enough life where you're also making these things that we enjoy playing a great deal.
As far as playing stuff recently, I have a hard time playing a lot of modern games. One, because I have like motion sickness, like for 3D environments, so it kind of
very common actually.
Yeah, I can't really play a lot of 3D games like Minecraft and stuff. I have 3 little boys who are into games quite a bit, and we've been playing Spelunky and Spelunky 2. It's an indie game. It takes the idea of like it's like a Super Mario side scroller platformer, but it has roguelite elements, where levels are randomly generated, and it has all kinds of deep secrets and alternate endings and crazy stuff, and the physics engine in it is so complex that you get a lot of unique, like, emergent behavior of how the different pieces interact with each other as you're playing. So it's very unpredictable. And it's a game that I hated when I first started playing it because I was playing it like Mario, where you're just trying to run as fast as you can, make the biggest jumps you can. And it's actually more like you have to go very carefully, look around your environment, avoid traps, be very careful about moving through this platformer. And I liked it so much that eventually I started liking it until it became one of my favorite games. And I actually bought the creator of the game. It was made by one guy, an indie developer, and he is living in a mansion in Malibu. Like he got his recognition for making a really awesome game, but he wrote a book about the development of it. And so I bought that book and read it, and just kind of nerded out about his algorithm of how he does his random level generations and things like that. So that's kind of what I've been into. Making stuff, I'm involved in this is going to sound crazy, an axe throwing American restaurant and axe throwing venue in Portugal.
Okay.
So I have a friend who lives in Portugal and wanted to start this business and wanted to kind of soup up the axe throwing gaming part of it. And so we developed this projected gaming system that interacts with like an iPad at the end of the axe throwing lane. So it's like an kind of an augmented reality experience where you have this projected live animated target that you're throwing axes at, and
still physical axes though. Yes.
Yeah, physical
Okay.
real world axes. Yeah. And you got to actually stick them into the wood. There's like a whole like skill thing that you have to figure out. But it has all these different games. So there's simple ones like tic-tac-toe and stuff, but most recently we've been working on it's actually very similar in my mind to Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, where you're basically fighting bosses. That's one of the cool things about Mike Tyson's Punch-Out is every level is a boss. It feels like.
Sure.
And so you're basically
Shadow of Colossus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're basically having to learn the patterns and the locations where you're throwing your axes to activate certain things to beat these bosses. So one of the coolest levels on it is it's like a whole Rube Goldberg machine where you like throw an axe that like cuts a rope, which makes some rocks fall down, which like pumps up a bellows till a balloon pops, and then a chicken like gets woken up by the balloon and like lays an egg that flies off and lands in a frying pan. And then the smell from the
Rube Goldberg machine from Goonies.
That's what it is. Then the frying pan like cooks the egg, and the smell wakes up a dog who jumps down and like launches a can of oil that hits the boss's lair, and then you have to throw another axe that like repositions a like giant magnifying lens to like light the oil that's on his lair and like burn him down. And so it's that.
And this can all happen in an augmented reality space in an axe throwing lane. This is
that's the cool thing about it.
Yeah.
There's like a panning camera. It's all 2D, and your targets are very clearly defined. But yeah, it's I mean to figure it all out, to make it all work, was a lot of fun. And we haven't actually launched it yet, but it's done and we're getting close to being ready to launch it. But the axe throwing has been a fad in the US
I just went for the first time last year. I was shocked at how much fun it was. I also, the entire time I was there, couldn't stop thinking about how dangerous of a thing this is to be happening with a bunch of dickheads drinking beer.
Yeah.
I don't care what safety protocols.
I'm just glad it's a thing you can pay to do now, because when I used to do it, just walking around shopping malls and stuff, it didn't go over nearly as well. So,
exactly. So that's kind of my side hustle. I have my full-time job is I'm a software engineer for a place in the Bay Area, a tech company. So that's what's really paying the bills. But I'm excited about this axe throwing stuff. We just opened up a second store in another city in Portugal.
Very cool. Is there have you guys done the art is there anything like this in the States yet that you know of?
So there
Or am I fucking up your business plan by even bringing this up right now?
there is a place that
He's got
does,
an axe. Don't forget.
and I know how to use it. They there is a place, one major, I guess, competitor, not really because they're in the US and we're in another country, but that does projected targets with, simple gaming system. Nobody's done real games though. It's all kind of cheesy, tic-tac-toe kind of games, which for the most part, most people who play these games, they can barely stick the axe in the board, spend an hour learning just how to do that. um, i'm trying to I'm trying to capture, coming back to nostalgia, the feeling that I had when I was a kid going to the local pizza place to play Street Fighter 2, or whatever the latest arcade was that they would wheel in there. And just uh, going back to this,
Requiring
just,
a development of skill, you mean?
yeah, where you might be curious to come back to our venue one day and see the latest game because the games are that cool. So that's what we're trying to do. I don't know if it'll ever really catch on because the
No, man. That if that works, that shit's already like you said, it's a thing. So if that works in practice in physical spaces, that will catch on. I think that's a very good idea. And this is someone who's only been axe throwing once.
yeah. And my feeling is that the fad of I feel like axe throwing is a fad, kind of like bowling. It's gotten really popular in the States, and I feel like it's fading out. That's kind of why we were like, let's be one of the first in Europe to do it, and be the leaders there of this.
Yeah,
fad.
man, but your comparison there is something that was a fad for how long? A long time.
Yeah.
So if you can maintain that fad and profit off of it, you'll be all right. You'll have the Malibu mansion. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Hopefully I'm not too old to enjoy it, but yeah, but that's my passion. Roger and I also have been talking more recently about another project that's been kind of kicking around, that we would really like to develop before we die, which is called Barfbarians. I don't know if you got any research into that.
I did. I saw the. I don't know where. I mean, maybe I would have saw that on your Twitter. I'm not sure where I saw that, but I did see something about it, or maybe it was in one of those interviews. Did you talk about it in that interview you sent me? Is that recent enough for that?
Yeah. 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 Barfbarians it's a 4-player beat 'em up style, like, Ninja Turtles arcade, X-Men arcade style game. And each character has the ability to attack their enemies with vomit.
Yeah, the idea was I mean, I grew up in also the era of like gross out humor, Garbage Pail Kids, obviously all the mad scientist toys.
Oh man, I had those. Those are fucking
Dissolve the
incredible.
monsters, all that kind of stuff. So I wanted a game that kind of like played into that stuff, but also.
Did you have the alien you cut open and dissect?
Oh, of course,
God, that was
that
so
was
good,
classic,
so good, so good.
Yeah. So
Sorry.
those were really fun monster toys.
Yeah.
But with barbarians, it's about these heroic barbarians. They're from this tribe, but they don't have the stomach for violence. And anytime violence comes their way, it causes their ancestral stomach juices to bubble up and spew out, but that is their weapon actually. So they have swords and stuff on their back and everything, but they never use them. They're just fighting with like this ancestral vomit that is and stuff. So we'd worked up a prototype for it years and years ago and stuff. And we had this title screen just that we had premiered at Comic-Con one year, and people were just nuts about it. And my wife, Marie, before she passed, she told me, like, this is a game you have to make. She believed in it more than any other game I had ever worked on, including the Bobos. So I knew
there's a nice resurgence of those. I mean, I'm sure you guys are aware of the Streets of Rage 4, those
sure,
Team and T. Those
some of my friends have actually worked on them, including the ones that had a Bobo, and Ben and Rudis was one of the animators on those, and he went on to do like River City Girls and a lot of things, stuff like that. So, I'm glad those games are still very popular, and I know there's like a new version of Castle Crashers coming out, another Newgrounds based company and all that. So yeah, it's nice that people still love beating up so to this day. And I've always wanted to do our version of that stuff because I know we could have a lot of fun with it. So yeah, hopefully that's something on the horizon for Nick and Cox and I. We'll see what comes of it.
I'm a little scared of it because Roger, just the and I've said this in one of our other interviews, but he always has a way of saying things that are funny in text format or in words, and then to actually create those visually is sometimes challenging. Like, okay, these guys use vomit to fight. What does that look like? Like, and how are they different from each other? And they're it's 4 different characters.
And we have ones that like where the vomit comes out and it forms a fist and things like that. So we definitely have ideas, but
a lot of work. Yeah,
it's absolutely a lot, and I ask a lot.
One of my frequent collaborator, one of my filmmaker buddies, we actually just did his latest feature last month. I always call he's one of those people. He's I call him a dreamer. Like he doesn't ever think about, he never even vaguely concerned about the practicality of something. The practicality of executing something. I mean, like he's always, it's just ideas. And then at me as the producer, I'm like, we don't have the money for that.
Sure,
it's like a lifetime with him of just like, we can't do that. We have to do something else.
No, I mean, and having worked on so many games over the years now, I'm much better than when I was in my 20s. In my 20s, scope creep did not exist. Now, yeah.
It's part of the magic of Abobo, though, is it's kind of the improv. Roger would say it, and we would just say, okay, yes, like, let's do it. Let's figure out how to make that thing happen. And
sure, you need the dreamer, but you got to have the person also that is like, okay, that's a great idea. We got to figure out a more creative solution that lands us somewhere very close to it and still appeases us, but is actually feasible.
I mean, to their credit, for the most part, they did exactly what I wanted. As far as right now, what I'm playing, I love the Steam Deck. It's a fantastic, absolutely fantastic. They put so much thought into the design of it, and I love it. But what I'm playing on it, I recently beat Kingdom 80s, which is part of the Kingdom series, like Kingdom New Lands, Kingdom 2 Crowns. It's kind of a tower defense style. It's just a side-scrolling one, but beautiful pixel art. My friend Martin Boots, who's just an incredible artist. He was one of the guys who actually provided some of the art for it, and he later worked on a little indie game with me called Brave Chase. And again, just fantastic art. But that's how I found out about that series, and I became obsessed with that. But I also backed a Kickstarter campaign for Turbo Kid, the game, which is based on the film Turbo Kid, which also dips heavily into nostalgia. Like the Turbo Kid's main weapon is based on the Power Glove. It's literally a Power Glove, and it's a really fun film. And the game is a Metroidvania style game. Again, beautiful pixel art, fantastic story, and it really expands on the universe that the film is based on. And I'm still waiting for the sequel film that they announced a while back to come out. But I've been backing those guys for any projects they've done for years on their crowdfunding stuff. But those are the 2 games I've been playing most recently. Though just this past weekend, I did bust out the NES, and I was playing Stinger, which is one of my favorite
I don't think I know Stinger.
games. Stinger is one of the more obscure ones. It's a 2-player shooter.
I mean, Konami, it can't be bad.
No, it's great. It's based on it's the only American version of a series called Twin B from Japan, and some of Stinger's music definitely made it into Abobo's Big Adventure. And I also think it was one of the catch-all characters that gets barfed out by Kirby when he deflates. I think there might have been something from Stinger at the Statue of Liberty scene at the very start screen. At the very bottom, you see a different character each time the game loads. That's one of the things who never got their chance to shine. That was one of our other little jokes on the screen. So each time you load the game, it's one of like 30 different characters we stuck in that little.
There's that many? No shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Again, we paid crazy detail for stuff that most people would not care about or even notice. So yeah, there's a lot.
Is Stinger the one that where they get a halo above the?
Yeah, and you can bump into each other, and you shoot jingle bells in Stinger, and the jingle bells change colors. And if you catch them before an enemy kills you, that's what changes your weapon or whatever. It's really, really creative series, and side scrolls and vertical scrolling. And the bosses are nuts. Like you fight a watermelon that shoots seeds at you. You fight a jukebox that spits music notes at you. Really fun stuff and great music. So
yeah, those guys are in the Contra level in Abobo's.
That's right. That's right. They are. Yeah.
The waterfall level.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. That's some of the stuff I've been playing lately. The Steam Deck, and I still dip into NES because it's what I grew up with.
Do you guys both have the hardware? And is it out and able to be played at all times?
Yeah. Okay. I had to get an upscaler to work on modern TVs. Obviously, you can't use the zapper or anything like that on
right. They actually, look it up. There's someone developed something I haven't used it yet, but that's obviously something people always say about the utility of using the OG hardware. There is someone developed something now that can get it to work on modern TVs, and I can't think offhand of what it is, but I'm sure it's not a hard Google. So if you're really pursuing that, I believe that is achievable now.
Well, the cheat on the old TVs was holding a magnifying glass in front of the zapper because it would always hit.
Oh yeah.
I just put the zapper up to the screen.
Oh, a lot of people do that. Yeah. As for what I'm working on now, I worked with Cyanide and Happiness on Freak Apocalypse episode 1 and 2. We finished writing episode 2 a while back. I honestly don't know what the status of it is at this point. I don't know what they're doing with it at the moment. Hopefully it's going to see the light of day because myself and the rest of the writing team and the artists and everything, it's the part of the game that I'm most excited about. So I'm waiting. I think it's just between them and the publisher right now with the plan is. So we'll see what goes on with that. But I've been working since last November for another company on a game that I'm currently under NDA for. So, but it's honestly the biggest game I've ever worked on. So I'm really excited about it. It's still comedy stuff, and it's been a lot of fun, and I'm doing voices for it as well. So I'll as soon as I'm allowed to tell people
talk about it.
I will.
Word.
It's going to be a good one for sure.
Cool.
How about you? We want to hear what you're playing too.
What I'm playing, if you listen to the podcast at all, you hear me incessantly, never let it rest about how infatuated I am with VR and specifically the Quest. Jay, my co-host, works for Microsoft, so needless to say, he is hardcore Xbox guy, and I have one. The controllers have been in my junk drawer for like 2 years. I can't even bring myself to play a flat screen game. I'm so into the VR immersion aspect of gaming now, man. So
you're a big Virtual Boy fan.
Yes. Huge.
You're blind right now.
Specifically, Waterworld. I just sit around and play that all day, every day on my Virtual Boy. So what am I playing right now? I'm playing this game, which is actually, I believe, was a flat screen game of the year, Humanity, which is funny enough and ever so topical. Lemmings minded thing where you were controlling these masses of humans that just come spilling out of this door into these kind of real beautiful white space void like levels where you control this little dog. Is kind of your cursor of sorts, and you
herding kind of, yeah.
Very, very. I mean, that's not a bad analogy. And you basically run around these spaces, and with the dog, you drop these commands, and you start with just the ability to turn them, and they just when they hit this particular space that you set this tile on, they'll turn the direction you told them to, and you got to work them through these spaces in kind of a puzzle context. And then, of course, as you proceed through it, different commands are given to you, and you have to use multiple problem sets to solve these puzzle spaces, and get the humans from point A to point B, and then additional streams of humans come in later, and you have to get them all, and sometimes you got to pick up these little things as they go, and of course those are placed in places that make it more difficult to. They're placed in the places that Mega Man extra lives or placed rather, where you're probably gonna have to die to get that. So yeah, so and again, it's very much that Lemmings type crack of like, I have to do this perfectly, and there's of a near infinite number of solutions potentially. I don't know. Some of them are probably, the early ones are probably more tracked, I suppose. But as they get more complex, of course, there's more potential solutions, and that I'm a nutcase about puzzle games like that, where you have to devise your own little system. There's another game in VR that I never stop talking about called The Last Clockwinder, and that the premise of that is I don't think you are a robot, but you're a character, and you basically create these automatons, and you can, they're tracked to your head.
My little clock right here.
Okay, there. You have these like little 5-second control loops that they basically you create an automaton that's mapped to whatever your hands were doing for that 2 to 5 second period, and then you have to string these automatons behaviors together to accomplish certain goals, like get this piece of fruit off the tree and into this container on the other side of the room. And holy shit, is that just like, again, because like the level, again, there are just truly infinite solutions in that case, because you're in a true 3D space where your motions can be anything, and you can come up with any crazy ass motion and like just figure out, and they restrict the number of automatons you can create, of course, to make it more difficult. So stuff like that, where you have to do these really creative things, but in a 3D space, to me, it just ups it. It's so, I don't know, it's just on a whole other level of gaming that you are in it.
It's
and
what you wanted out of the Power Glove.
It is precisely what I wanted on the Power Glove, and I've finally.
It makes me think the way you're describing it makes me think of that party game where you have to like put an orange in your chin and like pass it to another person, and that person pass the orange to another person.
Yeah.
That's like, that's not a bad analogy either for the Last Clockwinder one. Yeah, I know, Nick, you said you struggle with the 3D stuff. I'm sure that's not probably worse in a VR space, but oh man, it's a whole other next level. Like the can thing I say to Jay all the time is like, the idea, it's for cavemen. Playing games on flat screens is for cavemen.
Next level.
Yeah, it is
I have enjoyed some Beat Saber in the 3D realm.
That's a fun one, dude. But that's if you have the motion sickness problem, everyone assumes that's just like I mean, if you play Beat Saber, I'm surprised to hear that you would feel that way about VR, because that's a pretty high octane game. But there are plenty of super settled, fixed experiences that are still incredible, man. That I just as a game, it opens up a whole new door, man, to what a game can be and what a gaming experience can be. It's fucking incredible. Yeah, I can't get off the champion of it. It's just so fucking good to me. So that's what I'm jamming on now in most cases, is something on there, but humanity specifically.
I know someone did like the Legend of Zelda.
Yes, that's 3D. Fucking so good. Oh my God, Jesus, yes, you guys have got to try that.
I've seen it. Yeah.
Okay, well, you gotta in VR do it.
I'm sure.
It's so fucking good. It just like this, man. It was the same thing where like, I'd seen it and I was like, okay, that's cool. I want to try that out sometime. And then when you figure out how easy it is to like, there's a whole, if you like, I mean, who's not a Doom fan, but the platform, it's called Quest Z Doom, and it's essentially a launch box in the you have to kind of jailbreak your Quest to do it, and it's not a license, whatever, but you get in there, it's just a launch box, and you just literally are just toggling things onto the Doom 2 WAD basically with this launch box, and one of them is just Legend of Doom, and it is a 1-for-1 experience, but in 3D. And holy shit, is it good! Holy shit, is it good! And there's still flat sprites in the thing, but it doesn't matter. It's still so good. Yeah, man, it's so good. There's a Castlevania one too. I don't know if you knew that or not. There's a Castlevania one as well. It's not nearly as good because you have platforming is requisite to have a Castlevania experience, and platforming in like this 2D but 3D thing is not nearly as well executed as what's much simpler, just play control set for Legend of Zelda. But so good. Could not put it down in the same way I could not. I had to, like, I started playing that and I was like, it's like 8 levels, and like it's obviously a whole different experience to have to physically go through them than just play them on a controller, and a whole new, muscle memory, whatever. But yeah, I mean, like, it was like, I could not get off my couch and stop playing for like 36 hours straight. I had to finish it all in one essential sitting. With one go to sleep. I'm too tired to play anymore. In between.
Awesome.
So yeah, that good. That good. Cannot recommend that enough either.
So when you're moving around in the Zelda environment, you're holding a controller that has a joystick.
Yes. Although now with the hand tracking, maybe you don't have to. I played it on the 2, I believe. With 3, the hand tracking's gotten pretty good. You might be able to. I don't know if Quest C Doom supports that though, so that's a question I don't know. But yes, I played with controllers, and so you have the just those ringed deals that were on the 2, and you have. It's essentially on each one of those, the controllers are an NES controller, but you can use one hand because it's the stick and then the 2 buttons right there that you just swap over to. I guess you wouldn't be able to obviously attack, and so you have to use the 2 buttons on one and stick on the other. But yes, is the shorter answer.
You attack by actually swinging your.
No, but you know what? Have you guys seen do you know? Oh shit, I'm gonna forget the name of it now. There's an NES emulator that he has made all these VR 3D ports of the ROM of just he takes a standard NES ROM and then he has to build this additional file that kind of latches onto it and turns it into a little bit of a 3D space. And they've done that with there's he's up to like 80 or 90 games now, so you can play all these games in like just like kind of quasi 3D space. It's still a 2D game, but just in a somewhat 3D space. But for Punch Out, he made haptic controls. Oh my fucking god, is that good? And it's super hard. It's not perfect yet, but if you are a Punch Out fan, I almost cried. I almost cried in my headset. It was so good. It felt so good and so right and so close. Like I said, even with there's a few little things like the duck, because the ducking and whether or not you're ducking or dodging is still a little tough, and getting that right and always having your on screen or whatever your sprite response to what you're physically doing isn't perfect yet, but it's super close. And I don't know, getting knocked out by getting actually knocked out by Mike Tyson standing in front of you in a 3D space in Mike Tyson's Punch Out. It's so good. It's so good. Yeah.
Did it make you lay down on the floor and get back up to?
It's yes. Well, yes, you do. Well, yeah, you don't have to physically yourself. They should. You should. It should like pause until you go down and lay down there, and then I don't know, have some sort of physical thing, the haptic thing you have to do to get up instead of just hitting the buttons. That's the next release of it probably.
You just have Nick standing beside you throwing axes near you.
Yeah, what the hell's the name of it? You got it's again just a one guy developer did this whole thing. It's NES Sin. I'll send it to you guys when we get off. I'll look it up because because you don't even need a VR headset to experience some of what he's doing. And it's pretty cool. The stuff he's doing with that. So if you're not familiar, I'll send it to you when we get off here. You should definitely check it out. But yes, I mean, if you can find a Quest headset just to try out that Mike Tyson's thing, oh my god, you'll probably cry too because it's so good. It's so good. Well, guys. 2.5 hours. We killed it here. Thank you so much for staying on this long and talking about all this, man. This has been really cool. And I think
thank you for playing the game, man. I mean, it's just again, like I said earlier, it's awesome that people are still discovering it, and that hearing your enthusiasm for it, and you noticing like the little details that mattered to us, that the things that we knew were going to make us laugh, but not necessarily everyone would catch them. It's always awesome to hear like from someone who really gets it.
Well, yeah, it's super cool then that you gave me this opportunity to give that back to you, because yes, the experience of playing the game, like I said, it was the perfect celebration of what we've been doing. The podcast is just who cares about that, but just literally my own personal experience of finding it. And again, I love that I love that I had the personal policy of not looking shit up, and like I just want to experience it because again, the moment to moment surprise and elation of what it might have. Yeah,
that's the way to do it.
Yeah,
I'm glad
for
you
sure.
did it that way.
Yeah,
and like I said when I tweeted at you, just like you are like the exact person we made this game for.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It's an exact like fit.
Perfect symbiotic thing. Yeah, no question. You killed it. It's exactly, I like it. It couldn't have been more what I wanted it to be. It really, like, I other than Kuros's fucking leg, man, I don't know. I just don't have, there's nothing. There's nothing I
The
would
only
say.
thing is you didn't get the Last Starfighter reference.
Right
Uh,
on the balloon fight level, that's the special move.
Yeah, the Death Blossom.
I don't know any of these words you're saying. I'm not sure even what you're saying to
Yeah,
me.
so on the balloon fight level, the rage move is the Death Blossom, but that's
Okay.
a
Right, that's from
reference
the last Starfighter.
to an '80s classic called The Last Starfighter, where
And that
It's
is
this crazy thing a ship actually does in the movie. Yeah.
in the movie. Okay, well, see, there's our one disconnect. I'm also not a Star Wars fan, guys. I know it's fucking blasphemous. I'm
No, it's not. It's fine. You don't have to be.
yeah, I'm 80s sci-fi, it's like space sci-fi stuff. I don't know. It
Okay.
just doesn't hit for me. So I'm sorry that I didn't. That's
you
the
got to
one.
watch The Last Starfighter because you'll hate it and you'll also love to hate it. It's so bad, but it's so good.
I
It's so
struggle with those, man. Like the leprechauns and stuff. Like, that's the horror iteration of that. It's just like,
I
oh
think
my God.
you gotta watch them with the right audience and stuff.
Well, I will say that too. I
It's a
always
big
felt
part.
that way.
It's a shared thing. Like Nick
It
was
is,
also
and
saying
I'm.
the solid.
Are you guys familiar with The Room?
Of course.
Yeah,
But
right. So,
in LA, I went to a bunch of the screenings with Tommy himself,
okay.
throwing frisbees at us and everything.
I went to my first one, not to, because I've actually been working on. I worked with the sound guy. I know the sound guy that worked, Zolt Magyar. I did one of the first features that I worked on when I moved to LA. He was the sound guy on, and then I had this policy about, like, I don't like that it's so bad it's a good thing. It doesn't usually work for me. So I had never seen the movie, but I read the book, The Disaster Artist, when that was coming out, and then I of course saw The Disaster Artist, and I was reading the book, and I'm going through, and I see, there's like all these behind the scene pictures that Greg put in there, and one of them is the sound guy Zolt sitting in the parking lot with his head in his hands, and I'm like, how many fucking sound guys in LA can there be named Zolt? I'm like looking at it, and then later in the book, there's a picture of, like, he's Zolt's one of the only crew members, or maybe the only crew member that actually went up to San Francisco and they shot the B-roll, the B unit stuff up in San Francisco. And I'm like, that's fucking Zolt. So I'm texting Zolt. I'm like, holy shit, I just read the book, so I'm like all fired up about it. I'm like, Zolt, we're sitting down and we're talking about this, man. So I actually was able to get him and his boom op that worked on the film to do an interview with me. So I've been working on this animation based doc for fucking years now, because animation takes forever. You guys know that. This like it's like a 26-minute documentary now, where I'm kind of animating 7 minutes of the 20 something minutes with these real crude animations, kind of acting out the stories that Zolt tells about Tommy and the experience of making the movie, yada yada yada. So because of that all happening, they were doing one of the screenings near me out in West LA just, I think, earlier this year, and I went, and I'm ashamed, much like I was about not having played this until now. I'm so glad that I didn't watch it at home alone, because I think I would have hated it. Watching it for the first time in a movie theater with the people throwing the forks or the spoons and shit, and like just that whole communal, they knew how to watch it and were able to teach me intuitively how to also enjoy it just by osmosis and the human connection of being in that space with them. It was an incredible experience and just unbelievably enjoyable. So maybe I'm wrong about Last Starfighter 2, I guess, is my ultimate point.
Yeah,
Even though I don't know what it is.
you got to see it. But so here's a crazy connection, like a 7 Degrees of Kevin Bacon thing. So Roger mentioned Domo Kun earlier, in that they made Domo Kun's Angry Smash Fest. Tom Fulp, who's the founder of Newgrounds, which is the classic hub of gaming and flash animations all through the 2000s, and it's still going strong today. So they worked together on Domo Kun's Angry Smash Fest. I played Domo Kun's Angry Smash Fest and loved it. I was like, I didn't know this was possible to do in Flash. It kind of was a inspiration to me to learn more about Flash. And so when Roger came to me to work on Abobo's Big Adventure, I was like starstruck. Oh, this is the guy that made Domo Kun. So Tom Fulp, who teamed up with Roger on Domo Kun, he also made the game Castle Crashers, which is a big indie hit, and started the company, the the behemoth with some other people.
And he's
But
also working on Nightmare Cops now as well,
Yeah,
which
so he's
is
got
going to be incredible.
a game that he's working on right now called Nightmare Cops, which is looking to be fantastic. Kind of Freddy Krueger, nightmare, or what? There was one.
Jeff Bandolin is also the artist on that, who did the side art for our Abobo cabinet there.
So
it all
yeah,
goes together.
Nightmare Cops. If you remember, there's an '80s movie, or maybe a '90s, where they would kill themselves on purpose. Flatliners.
Okay,
Yeah. That's a classic, but it's a similar idea where they're going purposely into nightmares to do stuff. Anyway, so Tom Fulp made a point and click adventure that's so faithful to, but fun to The Room. It's The Room, the game.
Okay, amazing. I'll have to check it out. I'll have to check that out for
If you
sure.
wanna, it's kind of like Maniac Mansion style point and click adventure.
Really
Put it in a
yeah.
room. That's incredible.
But it hits all the notes from The Room.
Amazing.
In a perfect way. So all those degrees of connection are all coming together.
I wish there's so much out there. I just wish, I don't know. I wish, I don't know. I wish there was more time. You just can't consume it all and do it all. It's so frustrating.
I will say this, since you've played through Abobo clearly, and you've taken great notes on stuff, I'd like you to watch this video, the Far From Subtle, the Video Games Awesome people, their playthrough of Abobo, because
Okay.
it's like going to the room with the right people. It's the shared experience, because it's all of them on like a couch together and cheering at all the right moments. It will warm your heart watching it.
Absolutely.
To me, I think it is just the most fun playthrough, because again, they're people just like us. They grew up in the same time period. They grew up on all these games, and I think you'll have a fun.
Well, yeah, dude, this is great. Do I have a wind down thing? No. Thanks for joining us. Thanks to Imperial Schools of Honor podcast, Ninja Guide Musical Play.